Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. Super Naruto Rapid Systems Upgrading. Chapter 81. Seek Dao Yu. The pitch-black jade for seeking Taoism slowly throbbed in Li Jexuan's palm, and Li Jexuan could feel the terrible power that seemed to destroy everything in this jade for seeking Taoism. In the late Naruto period, except for Kaihuang, it seems that anyone who does not float a few behind him dare not go out. Seeking Taoism has almost become a symbol of strength, as the strongest symbol of Naruto. But Li Jexuan only swelled for 2 days before he completely calmed down. Because he thought of someone. Sensho Zuma. Can he defeat Chinsho Zuma with just a jade for seeking the truth? Don't be kidding, this jade for seeking the truth may not even be broken with his wooden man skills. Stepping onto the strongest road of Hokage, there is still a long way to go. It's time to go home. Li Jexuan left Profound Lord Town and brought back the news of Da Shi Wan's death to Konoha. Except for the fool who didn't believe it, no one else had any doubts. For the Cold Viper, the advantage of having fewer friends is that when you disappear, not many people will be sad for you. However, for other things, Chinshojian had to torture Li Jexuan. Are you sure you were not talking nonsense just now? Chinshojian frowned in disbelief. You beat the water shadow of others, and Ghost Lantern Wanyu gave you respectfully sent out of the village. Li Jexuan held Tsunade in his arms and chuckled. Yes, to be precise, I had a very happy conversation with Gui Deng Huan Yu and we have become friends. Being beaten by you in public, and you still want to be your friend, is this Ghost Lantern Moon licking a dog? Thousands of hands held his chin very suspiciously. This thing sounds too magical. Li Jexuan smiled and curled his lips. What can't you figure out? Look at Tsunade, how old-fashioned did you wait to see her with me? Now you are getting used to it. Sarutobi Risen hurriedly covered his mouth, otherwise he was really afraid that he would laugh out loud. You want me to agree with you 10,000 years too early. Sensho was furious and slammed. The next 3 days, if you dare to come to Tsunade, I will send you to Saranin with the of Thunder. As for why it was set for 3 days, because he knew that more than 3 days, Tsunade would not let him go first. But when he heard this, Li Jexuan curled his lips in disdain. It seems like someone can't fly Thunder God. Boy, don't brag. Chinshojian laughed childishly. Fei Lei Shen is my original ninjutsu. Apart from me, there is no other person who has learned it for so many years. The Sarutobi Hisaki also nodded affirmatively. Yes, that is a very difficult ninjutsu. I have tried it before, but I can't learn it at all. Have you heard? Chinshojian smiled kindly, and said as if he was educating his own children, children, don't lie. Thousands of hands bit the child very hard, and my heart was refreshing. Ha ha ha, after all, I was still a child and told such an inferior lie. I even taught him how could he learn it. I won after all, ha ha ha. The art of flying Thunder God. Li Jexuan flashed abruptly in front of Chinshofin, took off Hokage's hat, and grinned lightly. Old man, Feijian, it is really difficult to accept being surpassed by young people. However, you have to face reality. Li Jexuan flashed, and put the Hokage hats back on the head of Chinshojian. You are old. Thousands of hands was stunned. This turned out to be the Flying Thunder God. The Sarutobi Risen on the side was surprised and speechless. No one knew the Flying Thunder God art better than him. Because he is the most favorite disciple of Chinshojian, naturally he has studied this stuff. How did you learn? I remember I never taught you. Chinsho glared at Li Jexuan in doubt, his blank eyes losing focus. Laugh. Li Jexuan pretended to be disdainful and sneered. If you read this simple ninjutsu, you won't learn it. Just watch it once. Sarutobi Risen couldn't even speak, and he suddenly felt that he might have been in vain for the past 20 years. People are more angry than people. However, Li Jexuan was finally ordered not to find Tsunade for 3 days. As for the reason, I'm her grandfather, you dare to come these 3 days, don't want me to marry her to you in the future. When Chinsho Janma blushed and said these words, Sarutobi Hishin was shocked. Unexpectedly, in order to fulfill his promise, Chinshojian would not hesitate to use his grandfather's identity to overwhelm others without hesitation. 3 days is 3 days. Anyway, Tsunade will be mine for the rest of my life. Li Jexuan left indifferently. The 3 days he had free time was just right to deal with Anbu-related matters. Wearing Anbu's white fox mask, Li Jexuan happily sat in his dark army commander's office. But what he never expected was that he had just returned to Anbu. The civet cat in charge of the case in Konoha village immediately came to the door. "Captain, you are finally back." Tanuki Anbu grabbed Li Jexuan with bloodshot eyes and said, "I have searched the entire Konoha. Except for you, Captain, no ninja has the size to get into a suitcase. This guy really has perseverance." Faced with the nearly questioning report from Tanuki Anbu, Li Jexuan couldn't help holding his forehead. He never expected that there would be such trouble in killing Hachan. If you kill the Tanuki squad leader for no reason, it is almost no different from betraying Konoha. But if a squad leader is removed for no reason, it is no different from admitting that he is a criminal. It's really difficult. Li Jexuan stared helplessly at the Anbu of the civet cat, saying that he was not afraid of stealing, but he was worried about it. The leader of the civet cat squad is obviously eyeing him. For a while, Li Jexuan couldn't help but start a little murderous. Regardless of it, he plans to kill Tanuki Anbu first. But Li Jexuan's killing intent was noticed, but Tanmao Anbu was not afraid. Instead, there was an uncontrollable excitement. He knew that as long as Li Jexuan killed him. This proves that his reasoning is not wrong, and the real murderer is Li Jexuan. When the atmosphere was freezing Yu-Ja, a cute panda suddenly jumped out, grabbed the ears of the civet cat's Anbu, and said with a grin, "Why are you guys coming to bother Captain again? However, I have investigated the entire Konoha ninja, no one except the captain can get into the box." Tanuki Anbu is very stubborn. The panda was almost vomiting blood from him, gritted his teeth and roared, "You idiot, can't it be the other Shinobu village who is straying and committing crimes?" "What you said," Tanuki Anbu muttered to himself, fell into his own reasoning, and reached a conclusion after a long while, "It's not impossible." "In that case, don't you go and check it." Panda Anbu, who is in charge of intelligence, kicked Tanuki Anbu's and kicked him out. Li Jexuan watched this scene coldly, without speaking. He knew very well that he would not give up on this matter as long as Tanuki Anbu did not die. There is always such an idiot in this world, at the cost of his own life, but also to prove that he is correct. As if sensing Li Jexuan's thoughts, Panda Anbu quickly apologized in a low voice, "Please don't remember the villain, let go of this fool, Limao. I let him go. I'm afraid he won't let me go." Looking back, Li Jexuan couldn't help but feel a little afraid. If he killed the civet cat just now, besides defecting to Konoha, maybe he could not find a second way to go. "Captain, don't worry, I will definitely look after him." Panda Anbu made up his mind, and Li Jexuan would tie him up with a big iron chain as long as Li Jexuan returned to Anbu. Li Jexuan nodded, revealing the page. "What important information has the Anbu recently? You can tell me about it." Seeing Li Jexuan talk about work, Panda Anbu couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief, and said with a smile, "There is no big news outside the village recently, but there is a happy event in the village." "Happy event?" Li Jexuan raised his eyebrows suspiciously, "as that old fellow in the Chinshoji concubine." Cough cough cough. Panda Anbu coughed endlessly. When Konoha dared to arrange 1,000 hands like this, even in front of Anbu, he was the only one in front of him, right? "What's that happy event?" "Uchiha Tomokazu, Itachi and Sasuke's father." Li Jexuan stunned. This guy is also an important figure in the world of Hokage. As long as he is good at planting, both sons are very powerful. But what does this have to do with the Anbu's intelligence department? That's it, because of Uchiha Madara. The relationship between the village and the Uchiha clan is a bit unharmonious. Panda Anbu lowered his voice. "So Naruto-sama asked us to secretly pay attention to Uchiha's news." Hearing this, Li Jexuan's eyes widened. So, Konoha's surveillance of Uchiha had already begun so early. To be precise, it has never stopped. Senshuken, but an absolute Uchiha opposition. As soon as they came out of Anbi, Hyuga Masazu and Uchiha Yuya stopped Li Jexuan. "Captain Yushuen, you are so unkind, why did you take Dashimaru out to perform the task instead of me?" Hyuga Yizu grinned and complained. Before Li Jexuan had time to speak, Uchiha Yu on the side complained in an angry voice, "You are ashamed to say that you sneaked away from the last mission and gained such a powerful force." Uchiha Yuya has been greedy for Hyuga's curse seal for a long time. Medway on the side also asked, Summary: if there is anyone who can help, you must remember to call us next time. With Lee Jexuan's repeated assurances, these guys were willing to let Lee Jexuan go. But what is surprising is that Yuya Uchiha, who has the most ordinary relationship with Lee Jexuan, stayed for the end, and somewhat shyly took out an invitation letter. The patriarch of our clan gave birth to his first child, named Uchiha Tomokazu. I hope you can come to the banquet. Uchiha Yu was also a little nervous. Lee Jexuan's identity as the commander of the dark forces has spread among the Konoha high levels. However, most people are not very familiar with the upstart Lee Jexuan, and have no relationship at all. From this point of view, Yuya Uchiha's relationship is particularly important to the Uchiha clan. After receiving the invitation letter, Lee Jexuan smiled and shook his head. This world is really full of coincidences. As soon as I received the news, the invitation letter was delivered to me. So, are you willing to go? Uchiha was also a little excited. Of course, Lee Jexuan was a little speechless, and he had accepted the invitation letter himself. Uchiha Yuya's reaction was still so slow. As for going to the banquet, it is very interesting to think of. It is conceivable that a few years later, Lee Jexuan coaxed to visit the Uchiha clan and said in front of Itachi and Sasuke, "Ha ha ha, back then, your dad was when I grew up, and I even hugged him." It's really exciting. This is also a little evil of the traveler. Lee Jexuan smiled and shook his head. There is still a certain distance from the time on the invitation letter. Some things can be done by the way. That is consumption. During this period of time, Lee Jexuan has done large and small tasks, and has accumulated a lot of points, which is a huge 180,000. This unprecedented huge sum of money, most of which are provided by a few shadow-level missions, and the rest are some small missions, including the points obtained by Hyuga Yikazu and Dashawan after completing the mission. On average, Dashimaru and Hyuga Yizu can now provide Lee Jexuan with 1,000 points every day. Needless to say, the 50,000 ice escape blood continued to limit itself. It is used to continue to enhance the ice escape and superimpose the ice age. As for how to spend the remaining points, Lee Jexuan was a bit blinded for a while. Buying up to 130,000 yuan is naturally no use. The blood succession boundary in Naruto world is either too expensive, or completely useless to Lee Jexuan now. But when buying things from other anime, the price-performance ratio is worth considering. Uchiha Tomokazu's birthday party. The people who participated in the banquet were all well-known figures in the village of Konoha, most of whom were in the middle age, or were prominent in their families. At least Hyuga Yoshizu, a small role of the Hyuga family, is not eligible to participate in the banquet. The banquet was about to begin, and Uchiha Yuya stood outside the door waiting anxiously. "This is almost here, Captain, why isn't he coming?" "What, Lee Jexuan hasn't come yet?" Facing the inquiries from the elders in the clan, Uchiha Yu can only bow his head. "He will come, the captain, he promised me." Everyone knows that Lee Jexuan will carry the banner of Konoha in the future and become Hokage without any accident. This time, for Lee Jexuan, the clan made an exception for him to place a seat in the guest position of the Uchiha clan. Because of this, Uchiha Yuya is so nervous. "Don't let me down, Captain." But in the end, with 3 gongs and drums, the banquet officially began. In the ordinary seats, all the guests were seated, and Lee Jexuan could not show up either. Even if Uchiha Yuya trusted Lee Jexuan again, he could only turn around and leave. Who would have thought? 5 minutes later, Lee Jexuan appeared helplessly in front of the Uchiha clan. Unexpectedly, the time spent visiting the mall would have delayed the banquet. Fortunately, time seems to be too late. Lee Jexuan stepped forward and wanted to walk into the Uchiha clan's residence, but before he could cross the open space in front of the mansion, a Uchiha clan stopped him. "Boy, this is not the place for you to play ninja games." The cold-faced Uchiha tribe scorned the forehead on Lee Jexuan's head and pushed Lee Jexuan away fiercely. However, how could Lee Jexuan's power be shaken by this mere sublime, and walked towards the door without any movement? But to feel the huge force exerted on him, if this is an ordinary child, he must fall into a big somersault. For a while, Lee Jexuan also became angry, frowning and asked, "You are pushing me so indiscriminately, aren't you afraid to cause trouble?" "Stir up trouble." Uchiha Menwei curled his lips disdainfully. we Uchiha clan are not afraid, remember the name of the uncle Uchiha Menwei. When you grow up, come and get revenge from the uncle. Hearing this, Lee Jexuan became even more angry. The Uchiha clan is not good at others, and is particularly good at making people angry. That inexplicable sense of superiority makes people involuntarily disgusted. No wonder he died clean within a few generations. Lee Jexuan shook his head helplessly. If it was normal, he might turn around and leave. After all, he doesn't need to be verbose with a group of dead people, but since he has agreed to Uchiha Yuya, he can't leave easily now. Don't you think about it, do I have an invitation? Lee Jexuan tried to make Uchiha Menwei alert. However, laugh. Uchiha Menwei curled his lips disdainfully. You dare to come to Uchiha to cheat and cheat at a young age. All the guests have already been seated. Where is your place? Lee Jexuan glanced inwardly. Although the seats for ordinary guests were already full, there was still one special seat on the high platform. Maybe, that's my position. Lee Jexuan pointed to the high platform in the distance. He didn't believe that the arrogance of Uchiha's clan had reached the point of no brain. However, ha ha ha, Uchiha Gate laughed loudly. In the banquet of our Uchiha clan, is there any outsider qualified for that position? Do you think you are the first generation of Hokage? In front of Uchiha's mindless pride, it seems that only Senjujuma's name has some weight. Really deserve to be annihilated. Lee Jexuan shook his head helplessly, and turned around to leave. It's not that he doesn't keep his promises, but that he doesn't want to make matters worse. You can make trouble with such a destined family, but there is no need. But at this moment, a shining bald scoop suddenly came out with a probe. Is it Lord Jexuan? Dean Baldiao's flattering voice was very recognizable, and Lee Jexuan recognized him only after hearing it. Bald, why are you here? Lee Jexuan turned his head in surprise. As the head of the bald scoop, is he eligible to participate in Uchiha's noble banquet? Haha, I still entrust your blessing to Master Jiazan. Dean Baldiao leaned into Lee Jexuan's ear and whispered flatteringly, Master Jiazan, the nearly 100 ladies you introduced last time, I have arranged them all. On duty. Oh, Lee Jexuan nodded in satisfaction, looked at the rotten chrysanthemum-like face of Dean Baldiao, and reacted. Is he asking for credit? I have time, I will give you another batch of cures for all diseases. Dean Bald, who got Lee Jexuan's promise, rubbed his little hands in excitement. The last batch of cures for all diseases is going to be sold out these days. These days, Dean Bald's worrisome hair fell faster. Maybe in a few days, he will change his name to Dean Bald. However, it is a miracle to meet Lee Jexuan here today. At this moment, a doubtful voice rang from the side. Untouchables. Dean Baldiao was stunned, but the second generation of Hokage Lee Jexuan personally served tea and handed water, and killed Feng Ying's noble existence at the age of 3. Is such a big boss now so low in front of the Uchiha family? Yes, this guy scammed. Uchiha Menwei sneered and pointed to his eyes. Believe me, the eyes of our Uchiha family will definitely not look wrong, I swear in the name of writing round eyes. Quote. Lee Jexuan didn't know what to say, but was he stupid or bad? As for writing round eyes, there is really nothing to say in terms of vision. The kaleidoscope writes round eyes, and the eyes are overused within a few strokes. Don't kill a brother, just wait to be blind in this life. In fact, Lee Jexuan has always had doubts, what if the Uchiha clan who started the kaleidoscope has no siblings anymore? Is it necessary to start with the good brother that every man is born with? However, Dean Bald is naturally impossible to believe Uchiha Menwei's words. Not to mention anything else, Lee Jexuan's assets alone have reached hundreds of millions of dollars through his industry. His girlfriend is Konoha's most noble princess Tsunade, such a person needs to eat and drink. Finding that Dean Baldup didn't believe it, Uchiha Menwei grinned as if he was holding the winning ticket. Dean Maeda doesn't believe it. Then you can see, where is there any place in this guest seat? Indeed, the guest seats in the audience have long been full. But, Dean Baldiao didn't understand how, with Lee Jexuan's status, let alone a position, he had to create one on the spot even if he had no way. Why does Uchiha Menwei keep Lee Jia-yun out of the door? This guy is depressed, is he tired of life? Okay, I know that the dean is kind, but you don't argue for this little liar. Uchiha smiled and curled his lips. unless this guy takes out the invitation letter, I will admit that this guy is our Uchiha guests. Quote. Lee Jexuan was silent. He was ready to take out the invitation letter at first, but was scolded by this guy, and now he asked me to take it out again. Could it be that I am mud? Let you round it up. I don't have an invitation letter. Lee Jexuan sneered and curled his lips. As for the gate of the Uchiha clan, I am not rare to enter. Dean Baldiao knew that Lee Jexuan was angry, and hurriedly leaned into Lee Jexuan's ear. Master Jexuan, your adults don't remember the villain's past. If you want to be Hokage in the future, you will need the support of the Uchiha clan. Hearing this, Lee Jexuan sneered and shook his head. The grade of Director Bald is still too low, and the status of his and Uchiha clan has been completely reversed. The Uchiha clan looks glamorous, but there are many dangers inside. In the future, he might even ask for a door-to-door visit so that Lee Jexuan will leave a few more fires for his clan. Originally, he came to Uchiha Yuya to cheer him up, but now it seems that he doesn't have to give Uchiha this face. As for the invitation letter, what a joke. Lee Jexuan raised his voice up to the sky and whispered, my 8-inch man, with a 3-foot green front, the world is so big, where can't you go, why not need an invitation letter? Lee Jexuan turned to leave, but at this moment, Uchiha Yu also rushed out. Captain Jia-zan. As soon as he saw Lee Jia-zan, Uchiha was moved to tears in his eyes. I knew you would not let me dove. Captain Jia-zan. Uchiha on the side was shocked, his name sounded familiar. Waiting for him. Hearing this, Menwei Uchiha couldn't laugh at all, and he tremblingly pulled Yuya Uchiha's clothes corner. Cousin Yuya, are you right? This little guy is really us. A guest at home. Of course. Uchiha Yuya nodded affirmatively. The patriarch and the elder are just waiting to meet Captain Lee. Gluck. Menwei Uchiha was so scared that he couldn't speak. His surname is Lee and his name is Yushuen. Isn't this the legendary genius who was called Konoha Miku by the first generation of Hokage? Although he heard that Uchiha Yu was also a member of Lee Jexuan's team, it was only hearsay after all, so he never thought about that. But thinking about it now, I might have really made a big mistake. However, Uchiha Menwei still had some fluke in his heart. If this is a misunderstanding, is it because the cousin and the dean jointly tease themselves? Although this opportunity is small, it is not impossible. However, this is Lee Jexuan, Captain Lee. I don't know when. Uchiha Eki, the most serious clan elder in the clan, unexpectedly greeted him, and barely squeezed out a little bit from the face that hadn't smiled for hundreds of years a stiff smile. Oh, have you seen me? Lee Jexuan raised his eyebrows with a cold attitude. Just because he has thoroughly seen the Uchiha clan, as expected, as in the anime, he swells too much and will eventually destroy himself. Haha, Captain Lee hasn't seen me. But I had the honor to meet you in Naruto Mansion. Uchieki was very polite. Now Uchiha Menwei could no longer stand, and a peer fell to the ground. Menwei, what are you doing? Shame in front of the distinguished guests. Uchiha Eki was very dissatisfied. As a member of Uchiha's tribe, how could he make such a shameful move? However, now Uchiha Eki has no time to watch him, and he entertains Lee Jexuan with a smile. Captain Lee, let's go in first. The banquet is about to begin. Seeing this, Uchiha Menwei closed his eyes involuntarily. He is dead this time, unless Lee Jexuan directly complains and doesn't tell what happened just now. But is this possible? Lee Jexuan smiled and shook his head. Forget it, I don't have an invitation letter, but I can't get in. Okay. Uchiha Eki looked at Yuya with some dissatisfaction. What? Yuya, didn't you hand over the family invitation letter to Captain Lee? Hearing this, Lee Jexuan was disdainful in his heart. This Uchiha clan is indeed an expansion of the same line. Does he have to have this invitation letter to enter the Uchiha clan's gate? They don't even understand that they invited him, Lee Jexuan, not the piece of paper. However, after a long while, Uchiha Eki finally reacted and smiled and shook his head. I'm confused, Captain Lee, you are here, what invitation letter do you need? That won't work, I can't enter this door without the invitation letter. Lee Jexuan smiled and shook his head. Someone told me that in person. Who is it? Uchiha Eki Kazuya was impatient, frowning and looking around. Who is so bold to stop Captain Lee's way? Gudong. Uchiha Menwei's nervous heart almost jumped out of his throat, and he shrank in the corner in fear, looking at Li Jexuan beggingly. However, Li Jexuan's finger was still accurately placed on his face. Let him go. Impossible. Li Jexuan is not a great kind person, but he doesn't have such a tortoise temperament to directly complain. I am done. Li Jexuan pointed. Uchiha Yu also reacted immediately. As the saying goes, Hades is easy to pass, the kid is difficult to deal with. Captain Jia-zan maybe made things difficult by cousin Menwei. At this time, Uchiha Yu did not realize the seriousness of the problem. It wasn't until Dean Baldal finished what he saw that Yuya Uchiha understood that his cousin was dead. Jesus can't save him either. Snapped. With a fierce slap, Eki Uchiha's cold face was slapped on Uchiha Menwei's face. What a fool, he did such a thing and punish you for a full year. A full year of ban. Hearing this punishment, everyone including Uchiha Yuya was stunned. Even if you don't talk about Li Jexuan's many halos, just talk about the identity of his dark army leader. This punishment is too light. In other words, this is not punishment at all, but another form of protection. Interesting. Li Jexuan squinted his eyes. Sure enough, the upper beam swelled, and the lower beam dared to be so defiant. How is it? Is Captain Li satisfied with this punishment? Uchiha Eki looked at Li Jexuan with disdain. Although he said an apology, his words were full of charity. It's like saying, it's almost enough. We Uchiha's apology is the blessing of your 3 lives cultivation. If you don't cherish it, then don't blame me for turning my face. Satisfied, very satisfied, Li Jexuan grinned, 8 white teeth mixed in bright red gums, and his smile was particularly brilliant. Uchiha is very good, Uchiha is very good. Seeing this, the bald dean who was familiar with Li Jexuan couldn't help but shivered. He knew that Li Jexuan was particularly angry now, and he might kill him at any time. But just when Li Jexuan killed these 2 guys directly, Uchiha Yuya held Li Jexuan's arm pleadingly. Captain, let's go in first, after all, today is Fukucho's birthday. Li Jexuan thought, nodded, and walked into Uchiha's mansion. There are some things, you don't have to say it. This Uchiha Menwei, and this Uchiha Eki. Li Jexuan has already laid down the death penalty for them. As for now, let these 2 dead people be proud of them for 2 more days. Walking into the residence of the Uchiha clan, Li Jexuan was immediately welcomed into the VIP table, sitting with the senior Uchiha clan elders. However, Li Jexuan is not happy. Because he found that the eyes of these Uchiha clan elders looked at him, just like Uchiha Eki. Respect on the surface, but deep in the eyes, full of disdain for the nouveau riche. What a disgusting family. Li Jexuan watched coldly. He can understand Itachi's magical operation of killing my whole family. No one it really deserves to be killed. However, perhaps because the heights are so cold, the patriarch of the Uchiha clan is always the most calm one. Uchiha, who was the patriarch of Uchiha at the time, was the real murderer and politely apologized to Li Jia-yun. I hope this matter will not affect your opinion of Uchiha, Captain Yu Xuan. However, is this possible? The real murderer patriarch, you should understand that Uchiha's problem is not with me, nor with those 1 or 2 people. Li Jexuan sneered and shook his head. Uchiha's roots are rotten. Uchiha sighed fiercely, before he could speak. Uchiha Makoto took out the little Uchiha Tomokazu. Husband, what are you talking about? Uchiha Tomokazu. This may be the most important person Li Jexuan has seen in Hokage so far, not one of them. No matter it is the 1st generation, the 2nd generation, or Sarutobi Risen, they can't compare with this baby boy. Just because his name is Uchiha Tomokazu, his son is Uchiha Itachi, and Sasuke Wang Uchiha. To put it simply, if Li Jexuan pinched Uchiha Tomokazu to death just now, Naruto would basically not sing in this anime. No way, it's willful to plant well. However, Li Jexuan was not going to kill Uchiha Tomokazu. He wants to kill another person. Uchiha Menwei, and Uchiha Eki. The mask of the white fox flickered in the dark, and an additional line of mission announcement appeared on the taskbar of Anbu. I found the trail of the S-class wanted criminal the gold-swallowing monster Kodo. Because of the strange way of fighting, seek the assistance of a Uchiha tribe. Simple and crude method. Li Jexuan did not cover up, and directly used his authority to crush the past. In the final analysis, the Uchiha clan in Konoha is only a wealthy family, but not a law enforcement agency. Do you know what is the scariest thing in this world? That is the relevant department. We are the relevant department, open the door. Octopus Anbu pushed open the door of Uchiha's clan with a cold expression, and walked in without any daring to stop it. What's the matter with you? Looking at Anbi's weird octopus mask, Uchiha Eki raised his eyebrows in some doubt, and felt a little drumming in his heart. Just as he provoked the dark troop leader Lee Jexuan in front of him, Anbi approached the door on his hind foot, making him suspicious. We found the trail of the S-class wanted criminal Kakato. We heard that the nobleman Uchiha has good eyesight, so we need his assistance. As Octopus Anbi spoke, his expression was always cold. For Anbu, apart from Hokage and Dark Force Commander, no one deserves a smile from them. But when he heard this, Uchiha Eki's eyes widened, gritted his teeth and roared, "That kid, Lee Jexuan, dare to do this. Please don't involve unrelated people, etc." Octopus Anbu wiped Lee Jexuan clean. "You don't come here." Uchiha Eki gritted his teeth and roared, "Lee Jexuan wants to take Menwil out of the village to execute him privately. I tell you, men will not go anywhere." At this moment, Uchiha Menwei, who heard the news, happened to rush over. "Grandpa, what is going on?" This Uchiha Menwei turned out to be the grandson of Uchiha Eki. No wonder he didn't hesitate to offend Lee Jia-yun at that time, but also to protect his prestige. "Don't worry, Menwei, with Grandpa here, no one can take you away." Uchiha Eki hasn't finished saying. Octopus Anbu interrupted with a cold face. "As a ninja, you must accept the mission issued by the village. If you do not accept it, it is equivalent to a deserter. Don't give me a big hat." Although he didn't let go, Uchiha Eki's voice still involuntarily weakened. "I'll ask again, did the Uchiha family decide to defy the appointment?" Octopus Anbi coldly face, and his hand has touched the ninja bag on his waist. The Uchiha clan was originally the surveillance target of Anbi, and this time they acted according to the rules. Naturally, the Octopus Anbi didn't give any face. Seeing this, Uchiha Eki couldn't open his mouth. Ju clan defected to Konoha. This is not a decision he can make on impulse. Don't be arrogant, I suspect that this mission is nothing but imaginary. Uchiha Eki gritted his teeth and threatened, "I will report to Lord Naruto to thoroughly investigate your mission. This matter is not fast, Lord Jiangshu, you bother, our mission is about to begin, and please prepare for it as soon as possible." Octopus Anbi refused to let go. This task is a normal process regardless of whether it is released or requested, only. "Grandpa, I don't want to go, save me." Uchiha Menwei knew very well that he might not be able to save his life. Uchiha Eki gritted his teeth. Before speaking, Uchiha Menwei knelt on the ground and begged the Octopus Anbu for mercy. "I beg you, I have no eyes, let me go." What a waste. Even the Uchiha clan has such waste. But think about it, if you are a little bit courageous, you won't be sent to guard the gate. But seeing this, Uchiha Eki's eyes reddened, and he slapped Menwei's face with a slap. "Naughty animal, as a child of the Uchiha clan, you can't live on your knees even if you stand dead." After being slapped, Uchiha Menwei cried and hugged Uchiha Eki's thigh. "But Grandpa, I don't want to die." Hearing this, Uchiha Eki couldn't help but feel sorry for his grandson, gritted his teeth and roared, "Uchiha will never make a mistake. Since this kid Lee Jexuan wants to play, I will play with him to the end." As he said, Uchiha Eki smiled grinningly in his arms and said, "It's okay, Grandpa accompanies you to complete this task. I see what other tricks Lee Jexuan can do." Hearing this, Uchiha Menwei calmed down a little. The pride of being the Uchiha clan brought him back to his senses. That's right, he has his own grandfather to back him up, and the Uchiha clan backs him up. What are you afraid of? Seeing that the goal was achieved, Octopus Anbi left with a sneer. "I will see you outside the village of Konoha tomorrow morning, and I will inform you of the specific tasks." When Uchiha Aju's clothes were soft, Octopus Anbi knew that this grandfather and grandson were not Lee Jexuan's opponents. To this day, Lee Jexuan's method of interrupting the secret part of the mantis is still deeply imprinted in his heart. As soon as the Octopus Anbi left, Eki Uchiha ran around the family. In his capacity, contacting a group of masters is not a problem. "Oh, Lee Jexuan, you will pay the price." Uchiha Eki is full of confidence. He does not believe that as the elder of the Uchiha clan, he will not be able to beat the 3-year-old child. Challenge task. Defeat the Uchiha clan elder. Task content. In a head-on confrontation, crush Uchiha Eki from all aspects of strength, influence, IQ, and EQ, and completely destroy him. Task reward. 1 shadow treasure chest, 1000 points. Unexpectedly, that old guy is also worth a shadow-level treasure box. Lee Jexuan, who was developing a relationship with Tsunade, curled his lips disdainfully. That kind of waste should be a bonus brought by the family. After going through so many tasks, Lee Jexuan can be regarded as figuring out some rules. The reward of the task is directly linked to the difficulty. This difficulty is very complicated, not only related to the task. For example, last time I investigated the Jedi Canyon, if there were no sand forbearance, even if Lee Jexuan turned the entire canyon over, it would probably not be worth a shadow-level treasure box. The reward for investigating the Jedi Gorge is so high because of the existence of those sand ninjas. As for Uchiha Eki, it was not that Lee Jexuan looked down on him and removed the 3 words Uchiha, and a middle-level treasure chest was considered to be upholding him. As for Uchiha Munway, he is even younger brother. However, the difficulty of this matter is not to kill. It's these 2 guys with the suspicion completely removed. It's not worth betraying Konoha for these 2 guys. This thing must be done perfectly. In the early morning, Konoha village showed a little bit of water. We are already here, what do you want? Uchiha Eki led Menwei with a look of disdain. If you have any tricks, just use it. Please pay attention to the way you speak. We are going to hunt down the S-class wanted criminal Jiaodu, not a needless quarrel. Octopus Anbu performed this completely as a normal task. Of course, this is also Lee Jexuan's order. Uchiha Eki didn't believe the words of Octopus Anbu at all, and sneered, where is this corner? The country of water. Octopus Anbu took out the map and drew a circle on the border of the country of water. According to the information from the intelligence department, the last time Jiaodu came out was here. The task seems to be proceeding as usual. But the more this happens, the more disturbed Uchiha Eki. What does that kid want to do? You better not let me catch you. The 5-person team rushed towards the country of water, and the old Lee Jexuan, who was bitterly hated by Uchiha Eki, was sitting in front of the real murderer of the patriarch Uchiha, tasting tea, and making a series of cooperation plans while talking and laughing. At this moment, a little snake crawled out of Lee Jexuan's cuff, and a small piece of paper was spit out. Ready. Lee Jexuan smiled and nodded, burned the paper to ashes, raised his hand and raised the teacup. The real murderer is worthy of Uchiha's patriarch, the tea is so fragrant. If you like it, wait for the insider to bring you some back. In that case, I'm not welcome. The 2 talked very happily. Time slowly passed, and the octopus team had already arrived at the border of water country. This is an ordinary market town called Xuanyi Town. The town is not big, and the population seems to be only 2,000 to 3,000 people. After a simple investigation by Octopus Anbu, it was found that the corner had indeed stayed here. Even an entire town claimed to have seen Jiaodu, but it's strange that each of these people said that they saw Jiaodu in a different direction. This means that everything is possible in the southeast, northwest. In that case, let's investigate separately for the time being. Octopus Anbu nodded naturally. Remember, don't do anything when you find the horns, so as not to startle the snake. Hearing this, Uchiha Eki was very disdainful. Did Li Qiyun think that separating these dark parts from me can easily handle me? Don't underestimate the energy of an old Uchiha clan. Uchiha Eki is confident, but the country of water is a country with a cluster of islands. No matter which direction you are heading, you need to take a boat. We, Konoha Anbi, have a good relationship with the ship. If you need it, we can arrange a sailing ship for you. Facing the kindness of the octopus Anbi, Uchiha Eki categorically refused, and secretly contemptuously said, don't think I don't know your plans. Those ships are all your offline. Do you want to kill our grandson? I play this you were still playing in the mud during the trick. This is your own decision, I have no right to interfere. Octopus Anbu shook his head and left as if looking at a dead person. Grandpa, should we take the Anbi ship? Uchiha Menwei shuddered in fear, and he had an inexplicable feeling in his heart that that ship might be his last hope. However, the octopus Anbi is obviously Lee Jexuan's dog. When he gets on his boat, he will close his eyes and wait for death. Grandpa has eaten more salt than Lee Jexuan's boy has eaten. I wonder what tricks he played. Uchiha Eki grinned and sneered. There are so many boats in this town, we rent one at random, and we will come back after a stroll out to see what else they can do. Hearing these words, Uchiha Menwei could only nod his head only innocently. Go, let's find the boat. The magnificent sea, the blue water shimmering in the morning light. The young fisherman is pulling a fishing net and preparing to go fishing. The fisherman. Uchiha Eki looked at the small fishing boat with only 5 people on the sea with disgust. Are you fishing boat going to sea? You old man is really weird. The fisherman smiled and threw the net on the boat. I won't go out to sea, don't you raise me. Hearing this, Uchiha Eki frowned involuntarily. Rural villagers, poor people, speak so regardless of respect. However, for safety, he can't take care of that much now. Hey, I'll give you 1,000 taels, you take us out to sea. Uchiha Eki endured the fishy, and threw the silver taels in front of the fisherman. What are you doing? Faced with such a huge amount of silver, the young fisherman looked a little flustered and waved his hands again and again. If you are sightseeing, you should take a big boat. My boat can't go too far. Besides, you can use it. There are not so many silver coins. Give you the money, you just set the boat, it's a lot of nonsense. Uchiha Eki pinched his nose and got into the boat, sweeping the fishing net aside in disgust. Don't move the broken nets away yet. The more the fisherman declined, the more he wanted to take this boat. Of course, if it weren't for being afraid of Li Jexuan doing hands and feet in the big boat shop in this town, how would he be willing to do this kind of broken ship and make him smell fishy? Okay, I listen to your instructions, master. The young fisherman seemed to be afraid that Jiangshu would break the fishing net, so he hurried up and took the net off, rolled it up and hung it outside the boat. Uchiha Menwei got on the boat tremblingly, not knowing why. Obviously everything seems to be moving in a good direction, and his grandfather is also by his side, but he is getting more and more panic, as if death is getting closer and closer to him. Why is it shaking? Uchiha Eki slapped Mon Wei's face with a hatred of iron and steel. Could it be that Li Jexuan can cover the sky with one hand? Gudong. Uchiha Menwei covered his face and nodded. Seeing this, the rowing young fisherman smiled slightly. These two masters, what do you guys do? How far are you going? Uchiha Eki waved his hand impatiently. As long as you get off the coast, it's better to find a place to stay. This broken fishing boat is so stinking to me. Uchiha Eki didn't pay attention to Anbu's mission at all, and he didn't believe that Anbu really happened to find the trace of the S-class wanted man in Kodo. This was just a trick by Li Jexuan. He made up his mind to float on the sea for a while and dealt with it. Okay, then I know a small reef island is just right. The fisherman smiled and rowed, and before long, a small reef island appeared on the distant sea. A few extraordinarily huge reefs gathered into a small island, about 100 square meters in size, just enough to settle. Well, not bad. As the boat drew ashore, Uchiha Eki just wanted to turn around and praise the fisherman, but suddenly he found out. It's gone. Uchiha Eki stood up abruptly, and the fisherman who should have been rowing behind them suddenly disappeared. But the blue sea is calm, as if nothing happened. But the calmer, the more panic it made people feel, as if there was a suffocating silence slowly strangling their throats. Grandpa, what is going on? Uchiha Menwei was about to cry. Uchiha Eki looked around in disbelief. No, it's impossible. I'm a small fishing boat that I found, how could I be so unlucky? Unless, Uchiha Eki's eyes widened, and an almost impossible answer flashed in his heart. Li Jexuan. As soon as he heard this voice, Uchiha Eki gritted his teeth and jumped out of the cabin. If you have the courage, don't hide your head and show your tail, come out. Hid your head and show your tail. There was a loud laugh from a distance, and a small figure slowly came from the distant sea like a god. Yes, just go. There is an icy road, following Li Jexuan's footsteps spreading across the sea, and has been in front of Uchiha Eki. I was wrong. Before Li Jexuan came to the front, Uchiha Menwei thumped on his knees and begged for mercy. I was wrong. I shouldn't have eyes or no beads. Me. Uchiha Menwei is a trash snack in the Uchiha clan, otherwise it would not be his turn to look at the door. But Uchiha Eki couldn't accept it. He lifted Menwei up, gritted his teeth and roared, Li Jexuan, you don't have to be an inch. A good inch. Li Jexuan smiled and shook his head. it seems that as an old Uchiha clan, you will never recognize your mistakes in your life. Error. Uchiha Eki laughed wildly. As Uchiha, I will never make mistakes in my life. Even if I make a mistake, it is the world's fault. It's really a declaration of the second grade. Li Jexuan smiled and curled his lips. But, this is indeed the thinking of the Uchiha family. Sasuke Uchiha, even though he was annihilated and defected to Konoha since he was a child, he has experienced various displacements, but if it weren't for the presence of Prince Naruto, he would never leave, and for the second time in the Valley of the End, he was even more tied. Sasuke will never admit his mistakes and concede defeat in this life. But, look at the chrysanthemum face of Uchiha Eki. Li Jexuan's search for death. You are not Sasuke, nor the protagonist. In this world, there are always people who can't recognize their status. Li Jexuan smiled and shook his head. The higher you pretend, the more miserable you fall. You won't understand it in your life. Li Jexuan, do you think you are determined to win? Uchiha Eki smiled and took out the red flare, and shot it straight into the sky. Do you think I will come here defenselessly? Li Jexuan pretended to be scared and rubbed his hands. Could it be that you have invited more than a dozen Shangren from the clan to help out? As soon as you give a signal, you will come from nearby and take me away. Hearing this, Uchiha Eki's eyes widened in surprise. How do you know? Who told you? Who is it? I don't need to know here. Li Jexuan sneered and curled his lips. It is not unreasonable that the Uchiha clan perished at Fukucho's hands. Because his father, Uchiha's real murderer, is more bold and cruel than him. Li Jexuan kicked the boat over. Uchiha Eki and Menwei soaked embarrassedly in the sea. Well, I admit that you won this time. Uchiha Eki gritted his teeth. Although I don't know what dirty means you used to entangle my people, next time. Next time, Li Jexuan interrupted with a sneer, drew out the pheasant sword, and thunder wrapped around it, making a squeaky electric sound. You really want to kill Menwei? Seeing this, Uchiha Eki's eyes widened in surprise. He couldn't believe that Li Jexuan actually dared to kill his grandson in front of him. He was the elder of the Uchiha clan. No, Li Jexuan smiled and shook his head, slowly moving the grass pheasant sword aside. Uchiha Eki couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. It seemed that Li Jexuan hadn't been so bold yet. I'm going to kill you. The situation suddenly changed 180 degrees. Li Jexuan grinned and stretched out the pheasant sword, and the terrifying electric current soared straight through the heart of Uchiha Eki. Clan Elder. Li Jexuan smiled and kicked Uchiha Eki aside. Although you were an idiot, your patriarch is a full-fledged old fox. Uchiha's real murderer doesn't care about Uchiha Eki's life or death at all. He is even very happy to cut off some overexpanded clan elders, as long as Li Jexuan gives enough benefits. Puff. Uchiha Eki vomited a mouthful of blood, unwillingly threw himself on the side of the reef, gritted his teeth and muttered, I don't believe it, you lie, the patriarch will never collude with you to kill me, kill a clan elder. Quote. Collaborate with me. Li Jexuan smiled and shook his head, then turned and left. I didn't kill you, someone else killed you. Ahem, you don't want to run away. Maybe it's the dying of man. Uchiha Eki's thinking has become a lot clearer. The flares I just sent, they must have seen the octopus Anbu, you can't escape. Unfortunately, he picked the wrong opponent from the beginning. Counting the time, it's almost time. Li Jexuan smiled and turned and left, as if he didn't care about the dying Uchiha Eki and the shivering Uchiha Menwei hiding by the side. I just want to escape now. The dying Uchiha Eki laughed loudly. I will watch it with my own eyes, and your men will catch you personally. Ha ha ha. But suddenly, Uchiha Eki suddenly choked. Because the water in front of them suddenly gurgled up, a terrifying figure slowly rose from the water. The scattered body was stitched up with terrible grievances like maggots, like an abomination from hell. Golden swallowing monster Jiaodu. In the distance, the figures of the octopus Anbu were approaching quickly, but Kakato had already raised his grievances and rushed towards Uchiha. Uchiha Eki was stunned. At the last moment of his life, he suddenly discovered that everything he was proud of was a fart. All this is in Li Jexuan's plan. Puff. The terrible grievances beat Uchiha Menwei's body into a hornet's nest, and bright red blood and internal organs flowed out of it. It seems to have found the shadows of the Anbu, and the corners gritted their teeth and rushed towards Uchiha Eki. Seeing this, the Anbu didn't give much thought to it. Water escape water spout, soil escape earth burst, fire escape the art of fireball. Under the full force of the three Anbis, the horns were directly beaten into a pile of minced meat, leaving only the grievances that penetrated Uchiha's Eki. 5 minutes later, Anbu, who was in charge of the treatment, shook his head helplessly. Captain Octopus, Uchiha Eki and Menwei can't be saved. Hearing this, Captain Octopus didn't have much expression on his face, and he nodded as expected. I know, we will go back to the village immediately and report the news to Hokage and Captain. A day later, a perfect report was sent to Naruto Palace. In the operation of Anbi and Uchiha to hunt down Kakato, the Uchiha clan was attacked by Kakato because they called the small boat operation privately. They were unable to rescue and died instantly. If you just look at these, this is naturally a major failure of the Anbu. But if you scroll down further, although Anbi can be rescued in the future, he has already killed the S-class wanted criminal and captured the secret skill. Chinsho Janma nodded in satisfaction, let Sarutobi Risen report the report to the file, and gave him a big good evaluation. Anbi has done more for this action. Uchiha Eki is dead, dying from the mission of hunting down the wanted criminal, fighting with all his strength until the last moment. His deeds have inspired many Konoha ninjas, and they are even called Konoha heroes, noble to live and great to die. But in just a few days, it seemed that everyone had completely forgotten him, and he almost couldn't remember his name. But someone has never been able to forget all this. What should I do? The family is still the captain. In Uchiha's mind, the red and white fan and Lee Jexuan's unpredictable smiling face kept flashing back and forth. Maybe other Uchiha people just doubt Anbi's statement, but only he is sure. The old Jiangshu clan, and the cousin Menwei definitely didn't kill all of them. Because of Jiaodu, he was killed by Captain Lee Jexuan as early as 12 years in Konoha. Although he didn't accompany Lee Jexuan together that time, during that mission, he often asked Hyuga Yoshito to speak to him, how Lee Jexuan's magical calculations, pretending to be decadent, set traps, and the killing corners crushed by combat experience. He even knows every detail. But the more so, the more painful he is. If he didn't say it, he would betray the family, but if he said it, he would betray Lee Jexuan. Among the family and Lee Jexuan, he must choose one of them. This is especially painful for Uchiha Yuya. On one side is the family that he was born with proud of, and on the other side is the strong man who made up his mind to follow his life. Oh my god, why do you want me to know the truth? Uchiha Yuya hated the truth so much for the first time, but what he didn't know was that all this was in Lee Jexuan's plan. Uchiha Yuya, where are you going? I am looking forward to it. Lee Jexuan smiled and shook his head, sitting in the office in Anbi, soaking in a cup of tea from Uchiha's real murderer, comfortably. But half a minute before he was at ease, the office door was pushed open with a bang, and the civet cat Anbi, who was with iron chains, rushed in. I have analyzed the list of known ninjas in the 5 major ninja villages, and only you can do this. It's really bitter, this tea. Lee Jexuan helped his forehead helplessly. Is this guy a fool? When is this, still biting Saruta's death, what is it that makes him so mindless? You guy, you bother Captain again. Panda Anbu ran over and grabbed the civet Anbu by the neck. Next time, I will use ninjutsu to seal you up. It's useless. Tanuki Anbu yelled unwillingly. I will never give in unless I find out the truth. You guy. The panda pouted a little discouragedly. Is there no ninjutsu in this world that can shrink a ninja into that small box? Amount. Tanuki Anbu was stunned again and hesitated for a while. I don't seem to have done any research in this area, but this is indeed a possible doubt. Then you are not hurrying to leave. The panda forcibly dragged the civet cat and the iron chain out. As soon as he walked out of Anbu's door, the panda leaned on the wall and panted, why do you like to die so much? Going to provoke the captain. This is my destiny. I am willing to pay for justice and truth, even at the cost of life. Tanuki Anbu did not hesitate to speak righteously. It doesn't matter if you idiot is dead, don't kill your family. Panda Anbu rolled his eyes and said in a bad mood, maybe, I want to bury you too. Hearing this, Tanuki Anbu widened his eyes in surprise. Then Lee Jexuan will kill my family. Isn't he afraid? Afraid. Panda Anbu slapped the civet cat's head. Do you know the recent deaths of Uchiha Eki and Menwei? I heard that he died in the hands of Jiaodu, although death is honorable. Tanuki Anbu looked forward to it. Wrong shit. The panda looked down mysteriously. This grandfather and grandson just had a conflict with Li Jexuan, and they burped the next day. All fools know what's going on. You mean, murder? Tanuki's eyes widened in excitement. You idiot, keep your voice down. The panda covered the civet cat's mouth. You don't want to be honored one day, right? Fall 10. In the mansion of Thousand Hands, Li Jexuan smiled and turned over the cards. 3 plus 7, which was the smallest card type in the gambling 2-8 bars, almost lost. But when Tsunade turned over the card 4 plus 6, the only possibility of losing was revealed by Tsunade with a 100% chance. Li Jexuan smiled and kissed Gang's hands. Jia Zanjun, you won't let me. Tsunade lay in Li Jexuan's arms and acted like a baby. I want to take the initiative once in a while. Quote. Li Jexuan smiled bitterly and shook his head. Tsunade, this girl didn't know her physique at all. The gambling insulator known as the Big Sheep, the only way to transport it is to sacrifice to the close or beloved to go against the transport trend. When Tsunade really wins, Li Jexuan will consider whether he wants to find a good grave for himself. Master Jia Zan, a member of Uchiha's clan outside begs you, do you want him to come in? The little butler respectfully nodded towards Li Jia Zan. Li Jexuan has also been regarded as the half-master of the Chinsho clan since he acquiesced in the identity of Li Jexuan's son-in-law. No, I'll just go out. Uchiha Yuya, have you finally made up your mind? Li Jexuan smiled and stood up. He has been with Tsunade these days and really needs activities. Walking out of the mansion of the Thousand Hands clan, Uchiha Yuya stood firmly in front of Li Jexuan and knelt down stubbornly. Captain Jexuan, I have decided to give up the glory of the family and consider you as the master. Made the right choice, Yuya. Li Jexuan smiled and nodded. I assure you that you will never regret today's decision. Character: Li Jexuan. Title: Konoha's future. Follower: Osaki Maru 100 100ths. Hyuga Baku 80 100ths. Uchiha Yuya 60 100ths. The third follower. This makes Li Jexuan's follower point scoring plan take another small step. The Curse of the Sky. Li Jexuan left the Curse of the Sky on Uchiha Yuya's neck, and the terrifying natural energy of Longdedong poured in instantly, and Yu was about to die just as she saw it. But after pouring a few bottles of energy potions, he survived after all. When the entire curse seal was completed, Uchiha Yuya's loyalty jumped from 60 to 70. Showing strong power to make people follow is only the first step. The second step can only continue if the followers are given the same powerful power. Strength: powerful forces are constantly pouring in. Uchiha Yuya bowed his head deeply and knelt down and said, from now on, I will only be called Yuya, fighting for the captain. Yuya, Konoha is no longer suitable for you. Li Jexuan smiled and curled his lips. Go to Profound Lord Town in the Kingdom of Water, where I will leave you some good things. You know, Li Jexuan left the soiled eyes to Oshimaru. The eyes with soil, although not crushing everything, are a rare kaleidoscope of time and space after all. Just getting one is enough to cross the ninja world. I just don't know if I can manage Yuya's small body. However, these are no longer within Li Jexuan's consideration. The rewards for killing Uchiha Eki and Menwei have been delayed for several days, now it's time to open. The fluorescence flickered, and there was almost no suspense about the appearance of a scroll of experience, but besides that, there was a good thing that made Li Jexuan think about it. Life Elixir. The life medicine is worthy of its name, even if it is called the second life, it is natural that the more the better. However, holding the primary experience scroll, Li Jexuan couldn't help but hesitate. Should I save another scroll to synthesize an intermediate scroll, or just use it? After thinking for a while, Li Jexuan decided to use it directly. After all, he has too few plots to advance. Even if you save a middle-level experience scroll, there are not many choices. Turn on. Li Jexuan tore open the scrolls of experience and aimed at the stars, the yellow sand, and the panda-eyed youth with a gourd on his back. Is it about Gaara's story? When Li Jexuan opened his eyes when his consciousness recovered, a small white clay spider slowly landed in front of him. This spider is a bit familiar. After a while, Li Jexuan's eyes widened fiercely. This is his mother's art. Explosion is art. Cats. Almost subconsciously, Li Jexuan patted his hand to the earth. Tuliubi. The J-in speed of 0.3 seconds helped Li Jexuan block the explosion of the clay spider. However, he was blown away by the dust, but even if he did not open his eyes, Li Jexuan could know which plot this was. Take the tail beast, the wind and shadow take it back. If you guessed it correctly, Deidara will pick a country alone, take away the sand-hidden cage, and announce the existence of Akatsuki to the entire ninja. Li Jexuan wiped away the sand, and there was a big white clay bird flying at high speed in the sky, and there was a huge sand ball floating beside it. At the same time, the reminder of the task rang. Plot mission. Feng Ying wins back. Quest content. Recapture Feng Ying from Akatsuki's hands. Gaara. Mission rewards. 5,000 points, a complete set of Deidara art bombs. What a great reward. This experience plot is undoubtedly the fastest mission, the most compact pace, and even the best reward for the mission, but as in the plot, the huge C3 falls from the sky. But Gaara's sand was like a sky, blocking the explosion of flames from the village. It's really an exaggerated power. Li Jexuan shook his head helplessly. In terms of destructive power, Deidara's C3 bomb, even if it is not as good as the tail beast Jade, is probably the same. Everyone in Shao has 5 shadows, even a terrifying power far beyond the 5 shadows. However, Gaara is not bad. Not only did Deidara's arm be scrapped, but the entire Cheyenne village was completely protected, but okay, get into range. While Gaara provided protection for the sandy hidden village, Deidara did not relax. A little white pigeon flew quietly to Gaara's sand ball. Kaz. The white dove exploded, and a huge amount of dust was stirred up when it collided with the I Love Rosa ball. Seeing this, Maji on the side pouted confidently. Gaara's absolute defense is so easy to break. Indeed, as Maji said, the smoke and dust dissipated, Gaara's absolute defense is still so perfect. But unfortunately, no matter how perfect the defense is, it can't resist the erosion from within. Li Jexuan shook his head and sighed. Although Gaara crushed Deidara's arm and seemed to have the advantage, when he used the sand to defend, luck just take the lead. Art as explosion. Several clay spiders got out of Gaara's absolute defensive sand and exploded inside. This battle is over. Li Jexuan curled his lips in disdain, turned and walked out of the village. If it was correct, the scorpion had already killed all the guards in Sand Ninja Village. 5 minutes later, Deidara swaggered away at the place where the scorpions converged, carrying the wind shadow of Shinobu. The plot of Feng Ying takes back is officially on track. You can't let them escape. Kanjiro gritted his teeth and followed him away alone. Really looking for a dead end. Li Jexuan, who had a full view of all this, shook his head helplessly, and tried to defeat the scorpion with puppet technique. Even if Scorpion is not the #1 power in the ninja world, she is at least the #1 puppet master. With Kankuro's strength, he is only insulting himself. Within 3 days, you will be poisoned and die. Gaara. When the battle of the puppet master was over, Scorpion slowly walked away. Li Jexuan slowly fell from the sky beside Kanjiro. It's really a classic plot, I can't bear to kill you. Puff. The pheasant sword pierced through Kanjiro straightly, and bright red blood mixed with purple poison poured out. Fire escaped the art of the fireball. The fierce flame burned Kanjiro's body to ashes. As for the puppets, Li Jexuan collected them all in a non-waste attitude. Kanjiro is dead. Li Jexuan smiled and shook his head. In this case, let's see if Chiyo will come out. In the original plot, the scorpion died entirely because of Chiyo's emotional offensive. Otherwise, with the scorpion's ability, Sakura and Chiyo are not enough to see. But now that Kankuro is dead, Maki can't get the news of the scorpion, so naturally, please don't move Chiyo. After laying down the first dark hand, Li Jexuan followed Xie and Deidara and walked towards the sealed land in the valley. At this time, Naruto and the others just set off from Konoha. Seeing Deidara and Xie come to the river valley, Li Jexuan smiled and greeted him, "Two, please stay." "Who are you?" Li Jexuan smiled and scratched his head. "Actually, I admire Shao organization very much and want to join." "Join?" Scorpion's puppet sneered. "You're still the first guy who wants to join Akatsuki, what are you trying to do?" "Attempt. Don't say I didn't. Even if I did, I won't tell you." Li Jexuan smiled and pointed to the sealed cave behind Xie. rather than wasting time here, you should still have very important things to do. Quote. It's never too late to kill you. Scorpion sneered and wagged his tail. Fei Liuhu back sting. The sharp tail needles are covered with purple poison. As long as you wipe a little bit, without the help of the top medical ninja, you will die. But, as long as it fails to hit, it is useless. Zhao Qiandiao. The pale thunder was wrapped around the blade of the grass pheasant, randomly blocking the tail needles of the scorpion, and the terrifying thunder evaporated all the venom in an instant. Such chakra power. The Didera on the side laughed. Big brother Scorpion, you seem to have caused a troublesome little guy. Little guy. Li Jexuan smiled psychically. Shinya, Golden Wing Rock, come out. In front of two huge psychic beasts, Scorpion and Didera were as small as two small insects. However, Li Jexuan's purpose in calling them out was not to fight. How? My chakra amount has reached the standard, right? The foundation of spiritism is that the stronger the psychic beast summoned, the more chakras are consumed. What? The standard for activating the golem of outer Tao. Li Jexuan chuckled and curled his lips. The Dashawan with the ring of emptiness escaped, didn't it? Why do you know so much about our affairs? Scorpion raised his tail needle vigilantly, as if as long as Li Jexuan had a slight change, he would fight. However, I said before, because I admired the Shao organization, I collected so much information. Li Jexuan smiled and shook his head. Red Sand Scorpion, if you don't believe me anyway, it won't be too late to fight when you get inside. What? Hearing this, Didera smiled and shrugged. Big brother Scorpion, boss can't wait, we better hurry up. Seems to be moved. Xie sneered and curled his lips. I hope you don't play tricks. 5 enchantments open. The huge stone rose slowly, and Li Jexuan and the three took Gaara into it. Why did you come so late? Tiandao Pain's magic lamp body suddenly appeared in the cave. Li Jexuan couldn't help but frown. Who is this guy? Booze, hello, I'm Li Jexuan who joined me. Li Jexuan smiled and nodded. I have passed the assessment of Brother Xie just now. Seeing Scorpion nodded helplessly, Pain didn't say much. For him, only the plan to resurrect the 10 tails was the most important, and other things could not be considered. This can be seen from the establishment of Akatsuki. Let's start now. With the eyes of reincarnation, 10 people including Heavenly Dao Pain jumped on the fingers of the outer golem, and started to pull out the tail of Gaara abruptly with chakra. 2 days. If there are 10 people, it will not take 3 days at all, 2 days at most will be enough, but if Haruno Sakura didn't need to treat Konkuro, it would be easier to track her up. Li Jexuan grinned, he didn't miss them all along the way. Next, just wait. They dare to kill Kanjiro. Naruto gritted his teeth angrily, and the scarlet 9-tailed chakra came out continuously, and might run away at any time. After a long while, he calmed down and gritted his teeth and said, let's go after and take Gaara back. However, the intelligence personnel we followed before did not return any news. Cheyon's ninja is still so useless, unable to provide any beneficial information. But at this moment, Haruno Sakura found something unique. There is a mark here, it is a special mark of Konoha village. Haruno Sakura's eyes widened in surprise. I have seen this mark at Tsunade. Could there be other Konoha ninjas coming early? This mark doesn't look like an ordinary ninja, it looks like Onbi or Gen's pen. Kakashi frowned, but why are there people from Onbi here? Is it a spy lurking in Sandian village? No matter what, let's speed up and keep up. Naruto couldn't take care of so much anymore, and rushed over through gritted teeth. Naruto. The crowd could only follow. This impulsive tactic is really Naruto's style. Outside, someone is here. In the cave, he opened his eyes abruptly and said slowly, it's Konoha's ninja, and among them there are 9 human pillars. Just like in the plot, Pen still uses the technique of turning the elephant to get the ghost shark and Itachi to intercept. One is the incomplete Kakashibin and the other is Metkabin. However, the pirated goods are pirated goods after all, and Chakra was exhausted and died soon. Next, the slightest mistake is not allowed. The process of pulling out the tail beast has reached the most critical moment, and Pain is extraordinarily serious. However, in that case, I'm sorry. Li Jexuan smiled and let go of his hands. With just such a small mistake, the red chakras on the tail surged back a lot. What are you doing? Li Jexuan. Pain's terrifying reincarnation eyes were full of killing intent. return to the original position immediately, otherwise I will kill you. No, no, no. Lee Jexuan smiled and walked to Gaara's side and hung his hand over his body. I'm just a little dissatisfied. Dissatisfied? Everyone is a member of an organization. Why do you all have such a magical ninjutsu, but I don't? Lee Jexuan curled his lips dissatisfied, pretending to be a child, and said, if you don't turn your phantasmagoria skills, and the elephants into them leave the surgery to me, I won't continue to work hard. Hearing this, Pain couldn't help but frown. Although he intentionally killed Lee Jexuan directly, it is not the time now. Once Lee Jexuan cannot be killed directly, the resurrection of the outer golem will definitely be affected. It won't be easy to catch Feng Ying from Cheyenne Village next time. More importantly, Lee Jexuan's childish behavior gave Pain a little bit more luck. Maybe, give him ninjutsu and he will do things seriously. As a member of Akatsuki's organization, he was meant to teach him ninjutsu anyway, so it doesn't hurt to give him in advance. More importantly, this magic lantern body technique, without his transfer station, the ordinary ninja could not perform it at all. Absolutely. Ju smiled and nodded. Abaiju abruptly got out of the mud, and handed 2 black scrolls to Lee Jexuan. Lee Jexuan took the scroll with a smile. The value of these 2 forbidden techniques was no less than that of ninjutsu in the sealing technique, and even more than a little bit more. And if you want to learn these ninjutsu, threatening Pain is the only chance. Now, can you work honestly? The terrifying reincarnation stared at Lee Jexuan tightly, and Pen's eyes were full of volcanic anger. This is the first time he has been threatened since he became a god. In this case, the art of reincarnation. Pain's eyes widened in samsara, gritted his teeth and said, who are you? Why do you know this ninjutsu? It doesn't matter who I am. Lee Jexuan smiled and pointed to the outside of the 5 enchantments. Those guys from Konoha seemed to have arrived. You'd better make a decision quickly. Absolutely. Pain gritted his teeth and sent the scroll of absolute reincarnation art of birth. After receiving the scroll, Lee Jexuan smiled and jumped back to the fingers of the golem of the outer Tao, and cooperated with the others to completely pull the tail from Gaara's body. As soon as he pulled out a tail, Pain gritted his teeth and roared, Didera, Scorpion, kill this kid for me. Hey, it's just 3 ninjutsu, why should you be so stingy? Lee Jexuan shook his head helplessly, and blocked Didera's dove bomb with the earth flow wall. But at this moment, the 5 enchantments were suddenly opened. As in the plot, Naruto, Kakashi, and Sakura rush in together, but Chio is not here. Give me Gaara back. Naruto yelled and rushed over, and Didera, who wanted to capture another tail beast, tried to scoop Gaara's body away. But at this moment, Zhao Lei Che, the pale thunder blade divided Shiratori's body in 2, Gaara's body was taken into his hands by a small figure, and then disappeared abruptly. Seeing this, just as Naruto wanted to do something, Kakashi stopped him. Look, that's a ninja from Konoha village. The standard gray vest and the mask of the white fox blocked Lee Jexuan's entire face. Such a dress is undoubtedly Konoha's dark part. When we appeared just now, they were besieging this dark part. The careful Haruno Sakura gave proof in time. I should have left you a mark along the way, why are you so slow? Lee Jexuan frowned and preemptively said, I alone can't stop them. Hearing this, Naruto immediately lowered his head in shame. It took too much stamina when defeating the Zhuan with Deu Helix Pill, which caused them to delay some time to rest. If you don't take a break, if you can hurry, will you be able to save Gaara? Naruto is very guilty. This is not the time to feel guilty. You should immediately grab the 2 guys from the Shao organization. Lee Jexuan frowned and said, if you want to make up for your work, then act quickly. Hearing this, Naruto gritted his teeth and ran after Didera outside. But Kakashi still had some doubts about Lee Jexuan's identity, frowning and asking, the trick you just used was Zhao Lei Che. Lee Jexuan affirmed unconsoledly, this is a ninjutsu transformed from Lei Che recorded by your predecessor. Upon hearing this, Kakashi had no doubts. Raiche is his own ninjutsu, only Konoha is included. As for his outfit, although he was older, it was indeed an equipment of Onbi. These details are consistent with the characteristics of a dark spy who has been lurking in the sand for generations. I'll leave it to you here, I'll go after Naruto. Kakashi was afraid that Naruto would be too impulsive. Without him, something big might happen. Leave it to me without worry. Lee Jexuan nodded confidently. If there is only one person, I can easily solve it. Lee Jexuan stood beside Haruno Sakura, quietly confronting the red sand scorpion. It's really interesting. The scorpion of red sand grinned and let out a deep grin. Gia, you actually fooled us all. Lee Jexuan, should I call you Kong or Konoha's Anbu? Shiegigi grinned, and the puppet's body made a chuckle. What is going on? Haruno Sakura's eyes widened vigilantly, a little at a loss. To be honest, things will go so smoothly, I didn't expect it. Lee Jexuan smiled and stretched out his fingers, and the horrible lightning skyrocketed through the unsuspecting Haruno Sakura. Puff! Electric light pierced her chest, red blood poured out, Haruno Sakura's eyes widened blankly. Master Onbi, why are you really stupid, Haruno Sakura? Lee Jexuan squatted down with a smile, and cut Haruno Sakura's trachea with a pheasant sword, causing her to lose the ability to speak. In this way, a severely injured Haruno Sakura who couldn't make a sound appeared. Now, it's time to talk about the problems between us. After Haruno Sakura was settled, Lee Jexuan smiled and walked towards Xie. Fairy Dragon Mode, 8-door Dunjia Jingmun open. What a powerful chakra. Scorpion was amazed, but he was even more puzzled. You are neither from our side nor from Konoha. Who are you? Hearing this, Lee Jexuan grinned. I am not from this world at all. Madman. Toward the peacock. In the state of Lee Jexuan's full firepower, the puppet Fei Liu who didn't hold on for long, and was quickly beaten to pieces by Lee Jexuan. 3 generations of Fengiying. Scorpion throws out 3 generations of Fengiying, which is already the top power of traditional puppet masters, however. Facing Lee Jexuan, he still couldn't hold 3 punches. Boom! Lee Jexuan directly smashed the iron sand of the 3rd generation with only his physical power, and then smashed the puppet made by the corpse of the 3rd generation of Fengiying. Ah! Although the important puppet was broken, the scorpion looked indifferent, but smiled happily. Sure enough, the traditional puppet will become vulnerable to the real strong. In this case, then I will use myself. Scorpion opened Xiao's black windbreaker, revealing his true appearance, the ultimate puppet master, who refines himself into puppets Beiji Scorpion. It's really shocking, Scorpion. Lee Jexuan watched the appearance of Beiji Scorpion with great interest, and the live broadcast was more shocking than the animation, the ultimate art of refining himself into an immortal puppet. With that said, Deidara and Bijixi are also considered to be an artistic duo. It's just an explosive art that pursues instant beauty, another pursuit of eternal tranquility. It's just a pity that Lee Jexuan has all the points for defeating Beiji Scorpion, and Beiji Scorpion has no chance of winning. The ultimate endurance, and strong brute power. After pouring the energy potion, Lee Jexuan rushed in to meet Baiji Xia's Baiji exercise. After all, there are only 100 puppets. Even if it is 1,000, what about 10,000? The strong of my generation, just use my fists, and kill them one by one. Boom boom. The terrifying puppet bursting sound is almost continuous. No matter how the puppet Scorpion manipulates the puppet to stop Lee Jexuan can always rely on that crushing speed and force to break out of the siege. Like a star rising into the sky, it scatters these puppets like straws. He rushed to the front of Beiji Xie, made a fist, and poured his whole body strength on his chest. Boom! Beiji Scorpion's body suddenly fell apart, and for ordinary ninjas, it was undoubtedly dead. However, pop! Lee Jexuan squeezed the heart core marked with the word Scorpion. Hey, this can't make you run away, Beiji Scorpion. Chapter 91. Hoo. It's easy to say, but Beiji Scorpion is after all a real super shadow level powerhouse. After a game, even if he knew the ability of Beiji Scorpion, Lee Jexuan could only win by a narrow margin. Sure enough, every member of Xiaodang has super shadow power. But, it's all worth it. Lee Jexuan took the heart and intact puppet body of Beiji Scorpion into the system space, picked up a puppet knife and walked slowly in front of Haruno Sakura. The purple poison circulated on the blade. Lee Jexuan raised the sharp knife high. Am I going to die? Haruno Sakura's eyes widened in horror, desperation brewing in her heart, but she couldn't even scream, she could only shout in her heart, "Where are you?" Lee Jexuan gently turned the knife handle, and the sharp blade fell fiercely. Puff! Haruno Sakura's eyes widened in horror as the blood spattered. She was not dead. It was not her who penetrated the blade covered with fierce poison, but Li Jexuan himself. The bright red blood mixed with the fierce purple poison flowing out, but even in this situation, Li Jexuan still smiled calmly. Why? She didn't understand why Li Jexuan did this. He had never seen such a crazy guy. The more unknown, the more panic. Haruno Sakura, I hope you are important enough in the eyes of this world. Li Jexuan smiled and knocked Haruno Sakura on the back of her neck, knocking her out. After doing all this, Li Jexuan leaned on the stone pillar beside Haruno Sakura, smiling and closing his eyes. Time passed quietly, and finally someone returned here. It was no one else who appeared in front of the cave, but Naruto, Kakashi, who went to chase Deidara. Unsurprisingly, they failed to catch Deidara. Sakura. Seeing Sakura, who was seriously injured and dying, Naruto was stunned. His brain was blank, standing in place, shaking. What's going on? Kakashi helped Li Jexuan up and took out a bandage to wrap up his wound. Leave me alone. After waking up, Li Jexuan moved to Haruno Sakura in a rolling motion. I didn't expect that this Akatsuki turned out to be Shain's red sand scorpion, so powerful. He refined himself into a puppet, and I failed to protect the medical ninja under the 100 machines. Li Jexuan gritted her teeth excitedly and helped Haruno Sakura in a comatose state. She lost a lot of blood and must be transfused immediately. Upon hearing the blood transfusion, Kakashi stretched out his arm. You can draw my blood. No, Li Jexuan shook his head. Senior Kakashi, your blood has no ability to recover. It is best to use Naruto's blood to save Haruno Sakura. Can I save Sakura with my blood? Upon hearing this, Naruto regained his senses, and stretched out his arms impatiently. Pick my blood, quickly save Sakura. Naruto-san, you really deserve to be Hokage's first dog licking. Li Jexuan nodded secretly, but Kakashi frowned. Of course, he knew that Naruto had a good recovery ability, but was the blood transfusion really effective? However, when he turned his head to look at Li Jexuan, he was standing full of venomous sword penetrating vital points, almost certainly dead. Even in doubt, Kakashi was speechless, questioning whether a dead person is really necessary. Come on. Naruto rolled up his sleeves without hesitation and handed Li Jexuan his arm. For Sakura, let alone drawing blood, he wouldn't frown even if he cut a kidney. Asura blood. Li Jexuan was not the protagonist. Even if he was wearing Asura, the blood of Indra did not immediately become the 6 immortals. If there is no accident, these 6 bloodlines will be in the incubation period in this life. Li Jexuan doesn't know how to develop this bloodline, but he has a stupid way, that is, accumulate little to make more, gather sand into a tower. I don't believe it. I can't become a 6-way immortal body if I draw out dozens of Naruto Sasuke's blood. The sharp needle tube was pierced, and Li Jexuan was about to draw out Naruto's Asura bloodline. But at this moment, a hand suddenly stretched out and grabbed Naruto's arm. Sakura. Naruto's eyes widened in surprise. Haruno Sakura, who was supposed to be dying and unconscious, came back to life. Seeing this, Li Jexuan couldn't help but frown. Kai Zesheng changed, and couldn't drag it anymore. Sakura, she is back to light. Naruto, we must move fast, quickly get the blood out. Upon hearing this, Naruto quickly reached out again. However, Sakura stood up tremblingly under the gaze of everyone. The pale black curse imprints had crawled all over her body at some point, and her chest pierced by the blade no longer bleeds. Tsunade's 100 tyrants. Li Jexuan frowned involuntarily. He couldn't think that Tsunade had taught Sakura the technique of the 100 heroes so early, but she didn't seem to be able to cultivate at home yet, so she could barely stand without her body recovering further. Still have a chance. Just as Li Jexuan was about to do it, Sakura grinned with a stern grin. Although she couldn't speak, she fiercely pointed at Li Jexuan with her finger, and then directly pierced her heart with Kuwu. To Dai Mingzi, Sakura proves with death, who is behind the scenes. This world's will is really shameless. Li Jexuan shook his head helplessly. Haruno Sakura's entire anime came down. When was he so hard-hearted? Obviously, the world will perceive the danger and urge Haruno Sakura to make such a decision. But no matter what the truth is, this time it was a failure. Roar. Naruto had already pulled out his own plug-in, and he was in the form of 9 tails as soon as he appeared. Li Jexuan shook his head helplessly. He is now a limited strength higher than the 5 shadows, making him hard to beat 9 tails, which is really too powerful. You must know that Kyuubi leveled half of Konoha by one person, but the 3 generations and dozens of Shangnin couldn't level it. In the end, the 4 generations sacrificed themselves to reluctantly seal it. Next time, I will never make a mistake again. The terrifying tail beast Jade slowly swallowed Lee Jexuan. If there is another time, he will surely powder all Haruno Sakura's limbs. When Lee Jexuan regained consciousness again, he had already returned to Medway's cabin, where he tore open the scroll of experience. Opening the character panel, Lee Jexuan counted the harvest this time. There are 3 kinds of forbidden techniques: the magic lantern body technique, the elephant turn technique, and the reincarnation technique. Either way is extremely valuable. The magic lantern body is almost the most efficient means of communication in Hokage, and it can also use the lantern body to perform ninjutsu across regions, which is extremely powerful. The elephant turning technique can also be handed over to Da Shi-wan. I believe it can play a big role in his hands. As for the reincarnation technique, it is an invincible forbidden technique to resurrect the dead. As long as you have the yin and yang escape of the 6 immortals and the eyes of reincarnation, you can control life and death. Gaara's body without one tail. In the space of the system, Gaara's corpse is an item, which belongs to Lee Jexuan. In other words, if Lee Jexuan resurrects Gaara, Gaara will automatically become a follower of Lee Jexuan, and it will be a 100% follower. As for the art of reincarnation, the art of resurrecting the dead, the longer the resurrected object dies, the more the number of people, the more chakras consumed, and even the cost of life. This means that it is possible for Lee Jexuan to use the technique of reincarnation to resurrect the characters in the Hokage plot to the world and become a follower of Lee Jexuan. It is conceivable that Naruto Uzumaki taught Mizuman to rub balls, and assistant Uchiha Tomokazu vomited fireballs. This must be a very happy picture. However, the prerequisite for this is reincarnation. Lee Jexuan summoned the lonely Taoist Jade and shook his head helplessly. His current 6-dimensional immortal body is too weak, not to mention the reincarnation eye. Even the writing of the reincarnation eye did not give birth. However, even if he can't do it now, Lee Jexuan can still train his followers in another way. The puppet heart vitality of Baijixi. Lee Jexuan took out the heart of Baijixi, and then randomly took out a Baijixi to act as a puppet. When he stuffed the heart in, a miracle happened. 100 Machine Scorpion actually came alive. In this other time and space, Konoha came alive for 13 years. Although the puppet technique is not strong, he also has his unique advantages in dominating one side. What is going on? Baijixi frowned suspiciously, and couldn't help kneeling to Lee Jexuan. Although I don't know what happened, I seem to follow you from the heart. This is the power of the system. The binding force of the system is much stronger than what the curse seal is supposed to come from, but this can only take effect on followers who have a 100% eternal following. Lee Jexuan took out all the puppets in the space. Take these puppets and go to the profound Lord Town on the border of the water country, where there is a ninja named Oshimaru, and help him. Yes. Baiji Xie bowed his head respectfully and left, and walked out of Konoha village. Even though the time difference is several decades, the pattern of the 5 major countries has basically not changed. He knows the way. It seems that I will soon have a real ninja strong army. Seeing Baiji Scorpion leave, Lee Jexuan couldn't help but grin slightly. Although the snake curse seal has already invaded 1/10 of the water country, if there is no real powerhouse, the snake curse seal will not be able to take the water country. But this time after the scorpion joined, it was completely different. Perhaps, he will become the first ninja to change the 5-legged situation of the 5 big countries. At that time, he will become a daimyo in the country of water, and Tsunade as the daimyo. As soon as he thought of Tsunade, Lee Jexuan couldn't help but walk to the Sensho clan. He missed her for so many days. But as soon as he left the house, a news that shocked the whole village slapped him in the face. Konoha's coalition forces broke Cheyenne, and crushed all of Cheyenne in Cheyenne village, not even showing his head. The pattern of the 5 powers has changed. In the 1-to-1 contest, Shayek is not Konoha's opponent after all. What's more, Shinshojian is still alive. Now, that old man must have died proudly. Lee Jexuan scratched his head, involuntarily changed his steps, and walked to the side barbecue restaurant. He changed his mind. Instead of going to the Qinshou clan and being ridiculed by the old man, he might as well ask Shangqiu Dao Pengji to go to the barbecue restaurant to have a good meal. But before he could take a step, the voice of Qinshoujian suddenly rang behind him. Turning his head, Qinshou Janma and Sarutobi Hizen were all on shinobu, dressed in military uniforms, apparently just coming back from the battlefield. 10 minutes later, at the mansion of the Thousand Hands clan, all the group changed their clothes and opened a celebration banquet. Ha ha ha, this time I completely defeated Shayan's grandsons. Shangren of the Taoist school of Chu patted his belly and laughed loudly. What a happy thing, I am sorry if I don't eat a few cows. I'm sorry it's a cow. Li Jexuan sighed helplessly, shaking his head. He was really unlucky, and hit them right as soon as he went out. Seeing Li Jexuan shook his head, there was a bit of fire on the side of the Pommel Horse family. Their Kurama clan was originally a wealthy family with Uchiha and Hyuga. Uchiha is proficient in ninjutsu, Hyuga is proficient in physique, and their Pommel is proficient in illusion. It can be described as the three major families of Konoha, but because of the lack of succession of family geniuses, their status in Konoha village is rapidly declining. When I heard that Li Jexuan was born, the Pommel Horse clan couldn't help being a little bit sour. Human nature is like this, and I doubt everything I can't do. Sneeze, some people touted it as high, but when it was really time to fight, there was no shadow. Kurama Gen curled his lips disdainfully. I haven't fought a few real big battles, but I won the title of Konoha Miku for nothing. Upon hearing this, the atmosphere on the scene became frozen. Li Jexuan didn't react at all, just drank tea quietly. This kind of sour remarks after drunk should also be taken to heart, then he has nothing else to do every day. Seeing this, the Nara's military division on the side smiled and rounded it off. Jing Shin, you only drank so many glasses, why are you drunk? Drunk. The Pommel Horse jumped up, raising his wine glass, staring straight at Li Jexuan. You dare not say, I dare to say. Some people have said that some people are little white faces who eat soft rice. Relying on the noble lady's superior position, he just piles some credit that does not belong to him on him. The Pommel Horse turned his mouth in disdain, and asked the surroundings, a child who is only 2 years old will kill Lido, do you believe it? Quote. Silence is sometimes an attitude. Ha ha, Kurama Junshin sneered. Let's take a look, in fact, you don't believe it. The first generation of adults died in the end to save him. In this case, we might as well speculate. So, is it possible that the first generation of adults killed the fierce fighting? Kurama Junshin pouted his lips. Although the first generation of adults is a good Hokage, it is not impossible to give in for the only grandson-in-law, is it? Junshin, Nara Lushan reprimanded with Chinshojian. He said too much. But at this time, the Pommel Horse was also willing to give up, drank the wine in one sip, and sneered, there are some things, the less you say, the more uncomfortable we all feel. Today, I will say what everyone wants to say, what is wrong. Hearing this, Chinshojian couldn't help looking at Nara Lushan, and found that his expression was a bit embarrassed. Obviously, Nara Lushan also had doubts in his heart. Thousands of hands said something intentionally, but when he thought of his own prejudice against Li Jexuan, he suddenly understood that some things are useless to say. What if I'm finished? The Pommel Horse turned aside Li Jexuan disdainfully, and he returned from this big victory. He doesn't believe that Chinshojian dared to be in front of so many people, and punish him just because he told the truth. However, what he never expected was, it is not Chinshojian who is angry, but Li Jexuan. It's fine if you are finished. Li Jexuan sneered and put down his teacup. In this way, I will know what form to let you get out. What do you want to do? The Pommel Horse looked defensively at Chinshou Janma. Although he believed Chinshou Janma would not do anything to him, the matter was over and he had to guard against it. What do you do? Li Jexuan took out the drawing board and sneered. Since you question my strength, you can try it yourself. Hearing these words, Kurama Gen couldn't help but sneered. Do you really think of yourself as the Konoha genius who kills the fierce fighting and defeats the Ghost Lantern? It's true or false, just try it. Li Jexuan sneered and waved the animation pen. I won't bully you, I will use your best illusion to fight you. For a while, the swords were at war, but no one stood up to stop it. Thousands of hands can stop it, but it is not necessary. some things must be seen with their own eyes before people will believe that there are really geniuses in this world. As for Nara Lushan, and they held these 3-point expectations, naturally they couldn't help but stop. They also want to know the truth. Is this Li Jexuan as in the legend? However, Kun Ma Junshin completely ignored Li Jexuan. Although their Pommel Horse clan has declined, it cannot be denied that so far, their Pommel Horse clan is still the absolute overlord in illusion. A 3-year-old child dares to challenge his illusion skills. Illusion. The Pommel Horse turned his lips disdainfully. Do you know what illusion is at a young age? Even the most outstanding genius of our Pommel Horse clan. But before Pommel Horse Junshin's words were finished, his clothes suddenly burst into flames. It turned out to be an illusion. Seeing this abrupt flame, the Pommel Horse clenched his teeth and folded his hands together, and Chakra excitedly said, "Solve." But even though he screamed his throat hoarse, the raging flame didn't mean to stop at all, but it burned more and more fiercely. A faint smell of meat began to float in the air. Is this really an illusion? Nara Lu raised his brows in doubt. If it was an illusion, why can even he see this flame? Could it be that Li Jexuan included him in the scope of illusion? Turning his head, he found that it seemed that everyone could see the flame. No, this can't be an illusion. Nara Lushan shook his head in denial. If it is really an illusion, if you want to pull a dozen of them into the illusion together with Naruto, the chakra needed is an astronomical number. This number is so big that even the first-generation adults can't catch it. But before Li Jexuan could speak, the Pommel Horse who was being barbecued by the fire suddenly shouted excitedly, "No, this is illusion." The heart of the Pommel Horse has never been so excited. He put his trembling hand on the flame and felt the hot temperature. He smiled knowingly. It's real fire, I guessed it right. The flame scorched the palm of the Pommel Horse's heart, making a crackling sound of tar. But the hollow gaze of the Pommel Horse's heart seemed to see some action movie, just grinning, hee, smirk. It's over, isn't this guy in Jinxin who was silly by the fire? Nara Lushan widened his eyes and scratched his head blankly. But before he could do anything, Kun Ma Junshin grabbed Li Jexuan's shoulder with excitement. Why do you have the blood inheritance boundary of our Pommel Horse clan? Pommel Horse Junshin didn't wait for Li Jexuan to answer, and said to himself, by the way, you are an orphan. You are an orphan. Li Jexuan pouted. This guy seems to have a problem with his brain. Yes, I'm an orphan. Nani. The people in the whole room were dumbfounded. What about the violent fights? Why did it suddenly become a show of confession? The plot changes so quickly that even Chinshojian, who had been mentally prepared for a long time, didn't expect it. Young patriarch, Li Jexuan scratched his head suspiciously. What are you talking about? You can't go wrong. The Pommel Horse circled excitedly. You have the strongest illusion blood succession boundary of our Pommel Horse clan. This blood succession boundary will appear every few generations. God bless my Pommel Horse clan. The Pommel Horse knelt down in front of Li Jexuan excitedly, and embraced the earth affectionately. The first generation of adults, you sent such a genius Li Jexuan to us, and let our Pommel Horse clan return to glory. This guy is completely crazy. Nara Lu opened his mouth in surprise, and at a glance, he could see the small intestine from the tonsils. Li Jexuan reacted, because the blood inheritance he showed was the ability of the Pommel Horse Yakumo, so it is normal for Pommel Ma Jinxin to mistake him for the outcast son of the Pommel Horse clan. He is anxious to let himself recognize his ancestors and revitalize his family. I am not a member of the Kurama clan. Young patriarch, you don't have to admit it, but the blood of the Pommel Horse clan is always flowing in your body. Pommel Horse Junshin looked like Li Jexuan, kneeling respectfully in front of Li Jexuan. I am not the only one of the Pommel Horses in my body. If you count it seriously, the blood of Bai, Kimu, and Kagaya-ji is still flowing. Li Jexuan was unable to complain, but he couldn't say clearly, stealing blood to continue the boundary is a serious crime. Li Jexuan unwrapped the flames on the Pommel Horse's heart, and said helplessly, if I haven't used this illusion, I'm not a member of the Pommel Horse clan. Young patriarch, it's because I have no eyes, you must not breathe because of this. Kun Ma Junshin hugged Li Jexuan's thigh, crying with snot and tears. It's really shameless. The people of several big families on the side also slowly reacted, and Nara Lushan gritted his teeth. Oh, You are a pommel horse, and even played this set for me. I am really worried about you. For a while, everyone thought Kun Ma Junshin deliberately performed this play in order to pull Li Jexuan, a young genius who has no family, into his family. Too shameless. Everyone laughed contemptuously. There was a long silence. The Chu Dao clan's Shang Ren pinched his chin and thought, looking at this child, is it possible that it is the child of our Chu Dao clan left outside? In that case, our Hyuga clan also. Uchiha also looks like. Enough. Nara Lushan couldn't stand it anymore. He jumped out and reprimanded, what does it look like? Everyone is a figure of the elders of the clan, so fighting to let other shinobu find out, it's a joke. Hearing this, the family members bowed their heads in shame. Thousands of hands nodded in satisfaction. At the critical moment, it is still Nara Lushan, a military division who can hold his breath and is calm enough. Be sure to stay calm. Nara Lushan squeezed his chin and said seriously, when it comes to calmness, I think of Li Jexuan. He is so calm and very similar to our Nara clan at a young age. Maybe, Li Jexuan is a member of our Nara clan. Quote. With the end of Nara Lushan's battle for Li Jexuan, the celebration banquet after the big victory was completely messed up, and it became Li Jexuan's confession meeting. Enough. Qin Shoujian finally couldn't help it, slapped the table fiercely, and stood up. Master Feijian, you would never say that Li Jexuan is also a member of the Thousand Shou clan. Nara Lushan stared at the Thousand Shou Feijian with a vigilant face, and his expression seemed to say, as Hokage, you can't overpower others, grab it with us. Joke. Qin Shoujian curled his lips with disdain. Just this little guy, he wants to be surnamed Qinshou, I still disagree. Hearing this, Nara Lushan just breathed a sigh of relief, and turned his head to talk about Li Jexuan's life experience with the other clan. However, it is very likely that Tsunade will be named Jia Zan in the future. Qin Kai squinted and smiled contemptuously, as if to say, keep fighting, anyway, no matter what Li Jexuan's surname is, he will be inseparable from our Senshou clan. Involved. This is Hokage's contempt. At this moment, the families felt so tired. No matter how much they fight, they can't compete with Master Naruto. They invested early and pulled Li Jexuan into the chariot of the thousand hands. Okay, Senshou Janma finally stopped the farce and drove all the family members from the Senshou mansion. After all Shangren left, Qin Shoujian's face suddenly became cold, and he said to Li Jexuan in a deep voice, very proud, right? So many families are chasing you. Before Li Jexuan spoke, Qin Shoujian continued, I heard you want to be Hokage. I don't want it, I want it. Li Jexuan chuckles confidently. As long as he decides, then he must become Hokage. This is the confidence of a traverser. What's more, the old guy between the pillars is still watching him at the border. But, do you know what kind of person can become Hokage? Qin Shoujian said with a cold face. Do you think you are now qualified for the position of Hokage? Li Jexuan was stunned. He really didn't think about this issue seriously. What is needed to become Hokage? Naruto's appointment always seems to be very casual in the original book. Tsunade did it because he didn't do it either. Because Danzo died, Kakashi drove the ducks to the shelves temporarily and made Hokage. Could it be that this is a Naruto game that looks at the face? Seeing Li Jexuan lowered his head to think, Chinshui laughed a rare moment. Yes, the most important thing to be Hokage is to think. The relationship between the country and the country must be considered, and the relationship between the clan and the clan must also be considered. The honor of this entire country and Shinin village is tied to one person. It's not strong enough to serve as Hokage. This sentence, Chinsho Janjian also said to Zujian. It is for this reason that even if Uchiha Madara waits for a lifetime, he cannot become Hokage. The powerhouse everyone is looking forward to is qualified to become Naruto. Chinshojian smiled proudly. Just killing 1 or 2 ninjas is not enough to become Naruto. Only like this time the Dapo Saiyan coalition can bring you come enough prestige. Sure enough, as expected by Li Jexuan, Chinsho began to show off his achievements again. Don't know what's wrong. Once in front of Li Jexuan, Chinshojian easily became like to show off. It was nothing, and he killed about 20 Saiyan upper ninjas, 100 middle ninjas, 2,000 lower ninjas. It seems a bit too crazy to say that Xiaosheng. Chinshojian grinned lightly. That's a victory, an ordinary medium victory. But, After all, haven't you breached Cheyenne village? This time the big break sand hides the coalition forces. Sun Shinobu will have to avoid 3 points when meeting Konoha ninja in the future. Sensho Janma's face was full of pride. Isn't it that you haven't been able to break the sand-hidden village? Thousands of hands gritted his teeth. In this big victory, Xiaoyan won't take out tens of billions of silver taels. I will definitely not withdraw. If you break through the Cheyenne village, the whole Cheyenne will be made of Konoha, so why bother about the small silver? Li Jexuan said astonishingly, the stone broke the sky. You want to completely wipe out Cheyenne village? Chinsho was stunned for a moment, and opened his mouth in surprise. Do you know what you are talking about? I know what I'm talking about, but you don't know it. Li Jexuan curled his lips disdainfully. In this world, there can be no real peace between countries and between villages. Chinshojian's eyes suddenly became serious, and he asked in a cold voice, do you know what you are talking about? Do you want this world to return to the troubled times? No, I'm just thinking, maybe true peace requires true reunification. Li Jexuan stood up fiercely. Some things are done not by words but by doing. You just want to start a bigger war. Chinshojian frowned dissatisfiedly. Konoha has been fighting repeatedly, and now I need to recuperate. Shit, Li Jexuan sneered disdainfully. As the side that won the war, could it be that the losses in the war were more serious than the side that was defeated? The so-called recuperation is nothing more than the weak sympathy of 1,000 hands. Weakness can't bring true peace. Li Jexuan shook his head and chuckled. The bird is safe and aware of Honggu's ambition. You don't understand what I want. After speaking, Li Jexuan went straight out. Li Jexuan calmed down until he walked out of the mansion of Chinsho, only to realize that he was still too impulsive, and even said so much to the old-fashioned Chinsho. But he does not regret it, because he finally found what he wanted. Now that he has come to the Naruto world, what exactly will he do? Is it enough to soak up all the beauties in the world and defeat the strong in the world? What is the point of such a life in the end? Until today, he has been facing his heart. As a modern person from China, he has always had an ambition in his heart. Unify the entire Naruto world. The entire Naruto animation has been through the belief in the pursuit of peace from beginning to end, and with a powerful common enemy Akatsuki, the 5 major ninja villages and even the 5 major countries are merged together to form a temporary peace. But if Hokage is over and the common enemy Akatsuki disappears, will the 5 powers continue to be as harmonious and friendly as before? The answer is negative. All shishi in the world is for profit. There will be differences if there are interests, and there will be wars if there are differences. Only a completely unified country can completely resolve this dispute. For the first time, Li Jexuan understood what he really wanted. He will not only be a Hokage, but also a water shadow, wind shadow, earth shadow, thunder shadow, until he becomes the only shadow left in this world. Li Jexuan thought about walking out of the Thousand Hands mansion, but what he didn't expect was that someone had been waiting for him. Young patriarch, you can figure it out. Kun Ma Junshin smiled like a chrysanthemum with an old face, and grabbed Li Jexuan's arm, trying to pull Li Jexuan away. In broad daylight, the wretched old man laughed disgustingly, and forcibly pulled a cute little boy. Stop. The passing aunt couldn't stand it anymore, waved the rolling pin she just bought and rushed over. Let go of that boy and come to me. Quote. When the misunderstanding was resolved, the aunt proudly patted her belly. Although it is a misunderstanding, you can come to me at any time. I have time. After the aunt left, Li Jexuan shook his head helplessly. I really am not a member of the Pommel Horse clan, how can you believe me? Don't believe it anyway. Palmer Ma's heart burst into tears and hugged Li Jexuan's thigh, and said, the ancestral property of the Palma clan, which is nearly 10 billion, is still waiting for you to take care of it. The heart of the Pommel Horse is completely wrapped in Li Jexuan, but this ancestral property of nearly 10 billion. But, I refuse. Nani? Pommel Horse Junksen's eyes widened in surprise. He thought that Li Jexuan was just young and knew nothing, and didn't know what he could get by becoming the young patriarch of the Pommel Horse clan. Unexpectedly, after learning about the weight of the 3 characters, the young patriarch, Li Jexuan still refused him so firmly. Throwing away the sluggish Pommel Horse's heart, Li Jexuan curled his lips in disdain. Joining a family seemed very good. But while enjoying it, he will be bound by the family itself. After Li Jexuan walked away, the pommel horse array muttered to himself in disbelief. Unexpectedly, there are really people in this world who don't like glory and wealth. But if that's the case, how did Naruto-sama? The pommel horse array thought for a while, and slapped his thigh fiercely. That's it, I understand it all, the hero is sad for the beauty pass. At this moment, the pommel horse seemed to understand something. Tsunade, who was in class at the ninja school, couldn't help but sneezed, and he felt a cool whistling feeling, as if someone was eyeing something important for him. However, Li Jexuan didn't know what Kuroma Gen wanted to do, because he had already embarked on the road to the frontier of Sharon. The main task: break through the sand-hidden village defense. Task content: even if Sha Yin dares to initiate war, how can he be so light? It is bound to break through the sandy hidden village and make it pay a heavy price. Task reward: Super Shadow level treasure chest, puppet control is proficient in mastering. After many days, Li Jexuan finally saw the task of directly rewarding ninjutsu. The last time I came to Hokage was the escape mission. In addition, the Super Shadow level treasure chest made Li Jexuan's eyes shine even more. Upgraded again. The Super Shadow level treasure chest, just hearing the name makes people want to stop. I want to get one right away and see what good things are hidden inside. It's a pity that Shinshojian has already given up the war. Zongren on the front line, the reason why Shirin hadn't returned yet was just to force Cheyenne to pay war reparations. However, even if he is alone, he will kick open Cheyenne's door. Walking out of the gate of Konoha village alone, Li Jexuan was stunned. Why are you two guys here? Medway, Hyuga is good. Captain, I have already sold you my life, this time you can't leave me behind. Hyuga Yizu carried his bags, as if he was already ready. Summary: burn your youth, don't forget me. Medway grinned and stood upside down. I haven't competed with you for a long time, do you want to give it a try? You two guys. Yes, even if Shinshojian did not support him, there are still two people who are willing to believe in themselves after all. This feeling of being trusted is really good. Li Jexuan was not hypocritical, nodded and laughed. If this is the case, let us have a vigorous fight. When Li Jexuan everyone slowly disappeared, at the gate of Konoha village, Sarutobi Richin looked to one side in doubt. Teacher, can you just let him go? If this continues, he will start a bigger war. Shinshojian, who saw everything in his eyes, groaned for a long while, shook his head and sighed. His ambition is far greater than we thought. Let him try now. Try it. Sarutobi Risen was startled and suspicious. This was the first time he had seen Shinshojianma who indulged such a person. Hisaka, when a person's gaze is not limited to Hokage, what kind of existence will such a person become? Shinshojian looked into the distance, and there seemed to be a black and red back smiling at him. The wind and sand are raging, and the small inn looks unremarkable among the sand. Bah, bah, Hyuga Yizu stretched out his tongue to spit out all the sand, and complained subconsciously, I didn't expect that I would come to this ghost place so soon. Hearing this, the shopkeeper in the inn slammed the tea on the table in an angry manner. You nasty Konoha ninjas, no one invites you over. Hey, how do you guys talk? Hyuga Yizu stood up and was about to teach Shower a lesson. Li Jexuan reached out and stopped him. Wait, don't care about ordinary people. After speaking, Li Jexuan turned his head sullenly. However, we don't seem to provoke you, why do we say that Konoha ninja? You didn't provoke. Shower patted the table indignantly. You Konoha are at war with Sane, what does it mean that you didn't provoke us? However, our Konoha ninjas have never slaughtered civilians in the Kingdom of Wind. Li Jexuan frowned. At best, it is just a war between our ninjas. Why are you so angry? Laugh. The shop shower who heard this sneered disdainfully. I don't care if I fight for life and kill. It would be better for the Sand to endure it, but this group is defeated. If you lose, you will lose money. Losing money. I heard that Konoha is asking for 10 billion taels. Shower patted the table angrily. Where can those ninjas who don't work on production come up with such a large sum of money? In the end, it will not be added to us civilians. Taxes. Hearing this, Li Jexuan finally understood. Dian Shower doesn't care whether Sane loses or wins. For ordinary people like them, they can't wait for all the ninjas in the world to die. This may be a breakthrough. At this point, Li Jexuan smiled and psyched out a small white snake, and bit the shop Xiao's ankle. Another day later, Lee Jexuan and his party rushed to the camp of Konoha's coalition forces and met Konoha Kaminin, who stayed here, Uchiha's elite Kaminin Uchiha Mirror. Another famous person in history. Lee Jexuan nodded secretly. Uchiha Mirror may be the first Uchiha family to break away from the low-level family concept. It can be said that without him, there would be no such love for Konoha's Shisui. In this case, naturally, there is no way to kill the Itachi of the Uchiha clan alone for Konoha. For this kind of existence, Lee Jexuan is very respectful. It's just that Uchiha Kami doesn't seem to wait to see him. Captain Lee Jexuan, I have heard the purpose of your coming this time. Uchiha Koji frowned in disgust. I will not cooperate with your actions, if I can be honest. For Uchiha Kami, who loves peace, he dislikes meaningless battles, and hates Lee Jia-yun, who is trying to start a bigger war. Lee Jexuan, who had expected this a long time ago, was not angry, just smiled and shook his head. If you are covered by the peace in front of you, then disaster will not be far away. The history of Naruto is almost completely penetrated by the 4 ninja wars. For the ninja, the short peace is just a superficial flower. Lee Jexuan and his party decisively turned and left, and walked out of the Konoha coalition camp. Hyuga Yosuke frowned with some worry. Captain Lee Jexuan, if Uchiha Kyo refuses to send troops, what should we do? Surprised, Lee Jexuan gritted his teeth and said these 2 words. Since Uchiha Kyo refused to send troops, then he let Cheyenne Village take the initiative to fight. Chujin, what is that? When Lee Jexuan and his party leave, in the camp of the Konoha coalition. Master Jing, Lee Jexuan's group has left. The investigative ninja lowered his head and reported the whereabouts of Lee Jexuan and his party. Yeah, I see. Uchiha's mirror was calm. In his opinion, Lee Jexuan was just a group of shameless villains who wanted to use war to gain political achievements. After hitting a wall here, leaving is almost inevitable. However, the next words of the intelligence personnel completely shocked his eyes. After they left the coalition forces, they went straight to Cheyenne Village. Nani? Uchiha Mirror opened his mouth wide. He couldn't believe it. Lee Jexuan and the others dared to go to Cheyenne Village to die. Are these guys afraid of death? The Cheyenne Village nowadays, let alone people, even if a dog strolls past, it will be blasted into pieces by countless ninjutsu. What made Uchiha Jing stunned even more? That Lee Jexuan, didn't you kill Feng Ying before? Quote. The intelligence officer nodded silently. What a lunatic. At the same time, in front of Cheyenne Village. Captain Yuxuan, are you saying we are crazy? Hyuga Yizu opened his eyes and carefully removed the 100-second trap he encountered along the way. Medway, who was on the side, was sweating with fright. If it weren't for Hyuga, with his carefree personality, I'm afraid that he would be blown to death by this dense trap halfway. Crazy. Lee Jexuan grinned grinningly. As the saying goes, if you don't be crazy, you won't survive. This time I'm going to hit a rock and shake the sky. Along the way, Lee Jexuan and his party finally saw Cheyenne Village. The tall round canyon encloses the entire Sand Ninja Village, and the only way out is a narrow tunnel. Such a natural danger is indeed easy to defend and difficult to attack. In the silent night, the evening breeze was blowing quietly, but apart from the sound of the wind, there was not even a bug cry. Even though no one can be seen, the murderous intent in the air tells Lee Jexuan, only God knows how many ninjas are hiding in the Sandy Gorge passage. Gudong. Hyuga Yizu swallowed fiercely. Captain Yuxuan, what should we do now? How to do? Lee Jexuan grinned and chuckled. The road is at your feet, just walk over. With that said, Lee Jexuan put time and space Kuwuwu in the hands of Medway, and walked over towards Cheyenne Village like no one else. It's over, Captain Yuan-zan is crazy. Hyuga Yizu widened his eyes and said with a distress, Uncle Medway, what are you doing in a daze? Get the captain back quickly. After a long silence, Medway shook his head slightly. Believe the summary, when did you see him messing around? I guess he must have a good way to sneak into Cheyenne Village. My tweet's voice hasn't fallen yet. Cheyenne Village is a big tortoise shell, and Cheyenne is a tortoise with daring heads. Lee Jexuan stuck his waist and stood outside the canyon in Cheyenne Village and shouted loudly, Sand Shinobu has no handles. Dare to come out and see me. Quote. Medway and Hyuga Yazuki were stunned. You look at me in a daze, and I look at you. What is Captain Jia-zan doing? Of course it's a scolding array. As Li Jexuan came from the earth and had the most serious saliva warfare, the enemy was reluctant to come out because of the easy to defend and difficult to defend danger. Then the first thing to do was to scold the array. This is not a big deal. What those ruthless people in history did is called excessive, such as sending other women's clothes and menstrual belts. However, the history of Naruto world is very short, and there is no formation of troops, let alone the culture of scolding. Seeing Li Jexuan scolded more and more vigorously, Hyuga Yizu and Medway both covered their faces in shame. Li Jexuan was cursing, but suddenly there was a groaning footstep behind him. Someone is coming, who is it? As soon as Medway wanted to do it, Uchiha Mirror got out. It's me, Uchiha Mirror. It turned out that Uchiha Koji discovered that they had gone to Sandian village, and followed the road they drove out and chased them directly. Although he didn't like Li Jexuan's approach, he didn't want to watch Li Jexuan die in any case. But, what are you two doing hiding here? Uchiha Kyo's eyes widened suspiciously. Where is Li Jexuan? Where did he go? There, Hyuga Yizu covered his face and couldn't say anything. It was really shameful. Killing is just nodding and bowing, so why stop in front of someone else's house and curse like this? This guy. Uchiha shook his head and smiled weirdly after stunned for a while. Sure enough, he was an unexpected guy just like senior brother Sarutobi said. However, is it possible to scold others in this way? TMD, I can't take it anymore. An impulsive Sharon jumped out of the canyon, gritted his teeth and rushed towards Li Jexuan. I'm going to kill you. Zhao Chidori. The pale arc directly penetrated Sand Shinobu's chest nearly 100 meters apart, killing it in seconds. See this. Ah, right. All of a sudden, the four sand ninjas jumped out. I don't care if you have an ambush behind you, I will kill you. Zhao Chidori. The pale electric light split into four in midair, and a second later, a few more mutilated corpses appeared in front of the gorge of Sand Ninja. Impulsively, the whole team ascends to heaven, on the terrible aspects of pig teammates. From this we can also see how fast Li Jexuan has progressed. The Sand Ninja squad, which used to have to work hard to kill, can now be killed easily with just a few fingers. After a while, this guy is Li Jexuan. The Li Jexuan who killed Feng Ying. This guy dared to come here. Finally someone recognized Li Jexuan, and the whole Sharon Canyon was boiling. Whether it is tolerable or unbearable, the murderer who killed Feng Ying even dared to bully him to his door. Soon, news from the top of Sha Yin was instructed, desperately kill Li Jexuan. Boom, the whole canyon made a roar of footsteps. Thousands of sand ninjas rushed out from Cheyenne village. Some of them were still wearing pajamas. Obviously, they were too late to change their clothes when they heard the news. Kill the nasty kid Li Jexuan. Li Jexuan suspected that if he really fell into their hands, he might be killed by life. High popularity, it is also a kind of helplessness. Li Jexuan shrugged, dropped a kunai on the spot, activated Fei Lei Shen, and flashed back directly to Medway's side. As soon as he returned to Medway, Li Jexuan saw the Uchiha Mirror standing still. Come on, brother. After saying hello, Li Jexuan turned his head and ran, shouting as he ran, run, why are you still in a daze? At this time, Uchiha Kami returned to his senses. Thanks to Li Jexuan's blessing, the new war has been unstoppable. Immediately enter a state of combat. Regardless of other things, Uchiha Mirror can only run back with Li Jexuan, and it will not take long before the Konoha coalition forces will violently collide with the last power of Cheyenne village. Thinking of this, Uchiha Mirror couldn't help but gritted his teeth secretly. How many people will lose their relatives in this battle, and how many more war orphans will there be? And all these pains were caused by that Li Jexuan. Huh, where's that guy? Huh, it's really exciting. Li Jexuan panted heavily, picking up the kunai in the sand, and Fei Lei Shen's technique was clearly visible on it. The technique of Flying Thunder God is indeed worthy of being the #1 ninjutsu in Naruto. There was even such a conspiracy theory in the previous life. The reason why the 4 generations were drawn to death was because of the thunder. It was too strong. Instantly changed shape, no need to seal, no CD, as long as chakra is enough, you can even circle Hokage twice a day. However, this is not the time to study ninjutsu. Turning his head and looking behind him, the nearly 10,000 ninjas chased after the Maitreya and his party. Li Jexuan was afraid that if he didn't do anything, Medaway and the others would be really dangerous. Take out Deidara's bomb art suit. The last time I experienced the mission only talked about regaining Gaara, but I never mentioned whether it was alive or dead. Li Jexuan extracted the reward from the previous mission. In addition to Deidara's art of self-destruction, the rewards range from the smallest clay spider to the largest C4 Garuda. It seems a bit too luxurious to use C4. Li Jexuan slowly flew to the top of the Cheyenne Canyon Pass. It's decided, just use this. It can be regarded as completing Deidara's unfinished artistic pursuit. C3-18. This is a small clay doll, and Li Jexuan slowly threw it straight towards the canyon. As the doll fell, the clay doll grew bigger and bigger, and fell faster. At this moment, the Sans who were chasing Uchiha Mirror in the distance turned their heads sharply. What is that? Why is it in the village? But not waiting for them to recover. Art as explosion. Li Jexuan smiled and raised two fingers. Kaz. Boom. The horrible explosion sounded loudly, as if the entire world had collapsed in this explosion. The fierce fire blasted into the sky, and everyone temporarily lost their visual ability. When the light disappears, everyone loses the ability to speak. The entire canyon disappeared. This C3 exposed the entire Cheyenne village to all eyes, like a young girl stripped naked, with no more privacy at all. Now, it's over. Cheyenne was stunned. The reason why they could withstand Konoha's attack was because of the natural danger of the canyon. But now, this canyon is gone. Fighting head-on, they are definitely not Konoha's opponent. At this moment, the Konoha coalition that Uchiha Mirror contacted happened to be assembled. For a time, the awkward atmosphere spread. The two groups of Konoha Cheyenne have been fighting for several years, and they are all old acquaintances, standing in front of the ruins of this canyon and looking at each other. At this time, even if Uchiha Kami didn't want to start a new war, there was no way. The cooked duck flies to the mouth. It is hard not to eat it. Go. Konoha's coalition forces took advantage of the splitting of the Sand Ninjas. They swarmed up, and before two people died, they took the entire Sand Ninja village into captivity. My door has been overturned by others. What can I resist? Naturally, Li Jexuan would not let go of such an opportunity to brush up his prestige. He summoned Shinya, rode on the snake's head and swaggered over the ruins, towards the center of Cheyenne village. I declare that Cheyenne village was broken by my Li Jexuan. When the news of Li Jexuan's breach of Cheyenne village came out, all countries in the world were shaken. This is the first time since the troubled times that the ninja village of the 5 major countries has been breached. For the first time, Li Jexuan's name resounded throughout the Hokage world. Epic achievement achieved. World Star. Reward points. 50,000. This is the first time that Li Jexuan has received such a high point reward, which shows that Li Jexuan is now well known in the Hokage world. You won. The second generation Feng bald shaman's eyes were complicated. When the mouth of the canyon in Cheyenne village was blasted open, he knew that Cheyenne had already lost, completely lost to the 3-year-old child. Salmon, you didn't say that when we met last time. Li Jexuan sneered and shook his head, remembering that in the Jedi Canyon last time, if he hadn't led the rescue team with Shinchojian, he might have been buried here. You won't need to say more. Konoha Ninja had already taken control of the entire Cheyenne village, and moved his whole body in one move. If you start, most of the children and family members of Cheyenne village will be killed. Even as Feng Ying, he can only bow down to the wind, and Cheyenne village has now completely fallen into Li Jexuan's hands. On a quiet night, Li Jexuan sat in the most luxurious Feng Ying mansion in Cheyenne village. Puppet manipulation is proficient. At the first moment of receiving the reward, Li Jexuan felt a cool liquid poured into his brain, then flowed to both palms, and finally his feet. Chakra silk thread. Li Jexuan slowly opened his fingers, and the 5 dark blue chakra silk threads were linked together like a spider web, showing delicate chakra control ability. For a long time, whether it is ninjutsu or physique, Li Jexuan's fighting style has always been indomitable and open-ended. Although the lethality is strong, it wastes too many unnecessary chakras. This mastery in puppet manipulation just made up for Li Jexuan's shortcomings in controlling chakra. Give a simple example. With Li Jexuan's chakra content, he could only release the Jiao Leiki 10 times, and it would be exhausted. But now, even after 15 releases, there is still a balance. Intuitively, the combat effectiveness has increased by more than 10%. Sure enough, the ninjutsu rewarded by the system will never let me down. It may not be the strongest, but it will always be the most practical. Li Jexuan chuckled lightly while offering another reward. Super Shadow Treasure Box. The exquisite pure gold treasure chest has the relief of the sand-hidden village. The tall canyons and the round sand-hidden village are lifelike. It is indeed a super shadow treasure chest, as the name implies, far beyond the existence of the shadow treasure chest. Li Jexuan was a little excited. Just the shadow-level treasure chest can open so many heaven-defying treasures. What kind of surprises will this super shadow treasure chest bring me? Open the super shadow treasure chest. The pure gold treasure chest opened slowly. The relief of Cheyenne village started. The light yellow light flickered like wind and sand, and the three treasures floated quietly in the air. A silver scroll, a glass bottle filled with yellow sand, and a weird instrument like a slot machine. Naruto Experience Scroll Intermediate. Not surprisingly, this is an intermediate Naruto Experience Scroll. Needless to say the effect, Li Jexuan picked up the glass bottle filled with yellow sand. The blood of the sand continues the limit. This is Gaara's blood inheritance limit, or it is a human pillar ability that gives Gaara. Character: Li Jexuan, Shadow Class Powerhouse. Blood succession limits: 6 Immortal Human Body, God Level Lurking, Bing Dun, Elite Upper Ninja, Maelstrom Body, Upper Ninja, Hagmu Thunder Blade, Elite Ninja. So many blood succession boundaries have caused Li Jexuan to care about one thing and lose the other. If the blood succession boundaries are just a pile of numbers without sufficient depth of development, it will be meaningless. Before raising Bing Dun to the shadow level, Li Jexuan was not prepared to add more blood succession limits. Putting aside of the bloodline boundary aside, Li Jexuan finally picked up the weird little machine. Ding, I found a patch for the ninja card slot machine system, do you want to install it? It turned out to be another system patch. Li Jexuan shook his head helplessly. Does he still have a choice? Naturally, install myself. Ding, the ninja card slot machine is installed. With the ding-dong sound of the system, Li Jexuan's system added a slot machine logo. With a light click, a slot machine appeared like no other on the market. It's just different from ordinary watermelon apple bells. The rewards on this slot machine are a bit weird. Uchiha Madara character card, Senjuju character card, Kazuki character card, Sarutobi Hazaki youth character card. What is this thing? Li Jexuan scratched his head blankly. This is completely different from the usual slot machine, and what are these character cards? He had never seen these things even in the mall. This is a ninja slot machine. You can win a prize when you spend 10,000 points, and you can draw a ninja character card. The system professionally explained. The ninja character card can be equipped, and the host can obtain some of the abilities and attributes of the characters in the character card. Nani. Li Jexuan's eyes were bigger than a copper bell, and he could actually obtain the attributes and abilities of the characters. What a heaven-defying prop. If he was allowed to draw the character card of Ludao Madara, wouldn't he make it to the sky in one step? Li Jexuan has completely ignored the high price of 10,000 points, and some of the attributes and capabilities emphasized by the system. Pump. There is nothing to say. Li Jexuan grabbed the handle of the slot machine and shook it hard. The 10,000 points disappeared in the beating sound of the melodious jingle bell, but Li Jexuan didn't care at all. But it was a mere 10,000 points, and nearly 200,000 points accumulated for such a long time, just a small point. The points are credited and the slot machine starts. There are a total of 3 reward columns on the screen. As the rotation speed becomes slower and slower, the leftmost reward of the 3 reward columns appears first. Uchiha Madara. The golden character card with Uchiha Madara's head slid slowly over from a distance. Seeing this, Li Jexuan involuntarily took a deep breath, and desperately shouted in his heart, "Stop, stop it." But even though Li Jexuan crushed his teeth, Uchiha Madara slid over, and then slid over. As soon as Uchiha Madara's head passed, Senjujuzuma slid out after him. This time, the sliding speed between Shinshuju was even slower, but it was a pity that the latter character card was squeezed through the reward grid. Autumn Dao Ding Si, Youth. Li Jexuan's gaze slowly moved past, and the blue veins on his forehead suddenly burst. Why? Behind the 2 great gods Senjujuma and Uchiha Madara is shouting G. Cheating. The remaining 2 frames are even more laughable. White cat young, yellow cat young. Lee Jexuan shook his head helplessly. Please, even if this cat card is equipped, what abilities can it provide me? Ding. Character. Lee Jexuan. Equipped with card slot. 1/1. Equipment card. White cat. Provides light footwork. Special attributes. A little bonus for cute attributes to increase the love of women. There is no useless card in the ninja card slot machine. The system validly guarantees. Every card has its value. The key lies in how you use it. Hearing this, Lee Jexuan's blood boiled over, and then decided to have another. Jingle bell. 10,000 points disappeared, and 3 more white cards appeared in Lee Jexuan's system space. White cat adult speed, black cat young cute attribute, Eno young year. Adult white cats can provide a bit of speed, but unfortunately the cuteness bonus has disappeared. Come again. Why didn't Lee Jexuan refuse to give up the Chinsho Zujian within his fingertips last time? It was obviously so close, he would definitely be able to pull it out. White cat old age, black cat adult doom, Konohamaru young year. Come again. As the so-called lottery is cool for a while, the lottery has always been cool. Lee Jexuan didn't believe it. He was carrying a huge sum of 200,000 yuan and couldn't get a good ninja. As long as you draw an A-nin, you won't lose. 10 minutes later. Lee Jexuan panted heavily, and pulled the slot machine joystick severely. Come on. However, strange things happened, and the slot machine rocker didn't move. No matter how hard Lee Jexuan tried, there was no movement. System, what's the matter? The slot machine is broken. Lee Jexuan looked red, his 6-spotted card is still waiting for him. The slot machine is operating normally. If it fails to start, please pay attention to your account balance. The voice of the system was very calm. Hint, poor account balance. Lee Jexuan curled his lips subconsciously. He had accumulated a huge sum of 200,000 yuan, how could it be? It's really gone. Character. Lee Jexuan. Points balance. 302. Only then did Lee Jexuan come back to his senses, pulling the joystick once for 10,000, and his huge sum of 200,000 can only be pulled 20 times. Seriously, 5 minutes will be gone. When I thought of this, Lee Jexuan couldn't help but feel a little pain. As the saying goes, when money is used, he hates less, and he digs out his pocket to relieve cold. 200,000 flowers have been spent, so it is naturally impossible to make the system refund. Let's take the time to see what you have drawn. There are a total of 60 character cards. Excluding all kinds of ordinary animals, ordinary people only have 5 cards for the lower ninja, and even 1 for the middle ninja. Nara Shikamaru, boyhood. The only piece of Zongnan turned out to be Nara Shikamaru when he was a teenager. If you count it seriously, his strength is not much better than the other 11 lone ninja Xiaoqiang. However, the attributes of Nara Shikamaru gave Lee Jexuan a little more comfort. Nara Shikamaru. Calm +1, Speed +1. Provides special abilities. Shadow imitation. The restraint ability is related to the power of the ninja itself. Equipped with Nara Shikamaru's card, Lee Jexuan quickly noticed a cold breath entering his mind, calming him down. But after calming down, he suddenly found, I was recruited. Because of the bewilderment of the system, I turned my head and used all the 200,000 points for the lottery. Now, I want to use it to buy a few shots of ice escape blood and continue to replenish the body. No profit is not business, even if it is a systematic slot machine, the lottery also needs to be cautious. The burst rate is too low. The 302 points balance made Lee Jexuan feel very insecure, and he had to hurry up and earn some points. Thinking of this, Lee Jexuan decisively took out the silver scroll of experience. It's a good time to consume, and it's time to pay off the debt. Unfolding the scroll, Lee Jexuan looked carefully on the scroll. When he saw Naruto's birth and the plot of Nine Tails Chaotic, he subconsciously wanted to click it. The Asura blood succession boundary needed by the 6 Tao Immortals' human body can only be obtained in this plot. As long as you follow the previous experience, you should not miss it. Poor people, short ambitions. No way. Although Lee Jexuan also wanted to smoke a Naruto to replenish his body, he had to stay out of the plot in order to sneak attack on Watergate in that plot. In this way, there is no way to complete the task, and he can't even get the slightest points. Because of this, he chose the other end of the plot. Under the gray sky, the rain never seemed to disappear from this small country. The country of rain, a small country living in the cracks of the 5 big countries. As a small country, the saddest thing is that it has no right to choose war or not. Boom. The fire of the detonating talisman is intertwined with the light of ninjutsu, and the war in the rain is particularly cruel, killing, more like a murderous stage play. The war between Konoha and Yuyan village is fierce, and it is difficult to distinguish. Standing on the top of the mountain and quietly looking at the fierce battlefield in the distance, Lee Jae-kyun slowly backed up without rushing forward to join the battle. Even if one of them is Konoha. Even his lover Tsunade is fighting on the battlefield. However, Lee Jia is very clear that the world of plot is the world of plot, and he will not be passionate about thinking that all Tsunade in time and space is his wife. After leaving the battlefield, Lee Jae-kyun thought secretly in his heart, in this plot, he has 2 choices. The first is to find a way to participate in the plot and earn plot and task rewards. The second is sneak attack on Nagato. Compared to Nagato, who was far superior to the 5 shadows in later generations, at this time, Nagato was only a child who knew no ninjutsu and only knew how to use the power of the basic reincarnation eye. Reincarnation eye. It can be said that it is the most important part of Lee Jae-kyun's follower plan, but after a long time of thinking, Lee Jae-kyun still gave up this option. The first is the success rate. Is there such a coincidence in this world that Nagato, Yahiko, and Xiaonan all survived in this troubled time? Don't forget, Highway, who has been lurking in the dark, has been paying attention to their most important piece. If Lee Jae-kyun tried to attack Nagato in vain, Heiju, Kagayaji's last child, would not be surprised by any means. Of course, more importantly, Lee Jae-kyun didn't like to buckle other people's eyes for his own use. What's more, it is still a third-hand product. Since he chooses to integrate into the plot, Lee Jae-kyun must think of a way to join one camp reasonably. Lee Jae-kyun is not trembling, of course he has to choose Konoha, the strongest camp. More importantly, Lee Jae-kyun knew that Jilai would never kill himself with a disagreement. Other countries would not be able to guarantee. The war is still going on, but in this months and years of war, no matter how strong a ninja is, it is impossible to fight without sleep. The sky gradually darkened, and the defeated party dragged the corpse back to the camp, licking the wound. The one who defeated naturally returns to camp and recuperates. Oshimaru, Tsunade and the group of 3 assisted each other towards the Konoha camp, but at this moment, the loud cry of the baby behind the huge boulder in the distance interrupted their pace. Wow, wow! The cries of the immature children made Tsunade and the 3 of them look at each other and walked over cautiously. On the battlefield, any situation can happen. But when they turned over the stone, a heart-wrenching scene appeared in front of them. Next to the pit where the detonating talisman exploded, a man and a woman, 2 civilians tightly protected a 3-year-old child. The children are safe, but their bodies are already riddled with holes and have lost their lives. What should I do? War orphans, the final fate is very tragic. Oshimaru held up kunai expressionlessly. Let me kill him here, it is also a good thing for him. Dashiwan is still the same, it's better to live by yourself than to die. Others have a little bit of difficulty, so they just die. Lee Jae-kyun closed his eyes and curled his lips. When I go back, I must let you know what life is precious. Stop, Dashiwan. Jiraiya and Tsunade stopped in unison, and Tsunade directly lifted Lee Jae-kyun out of the body. How can you kill such a cute child? Character: Lee Jae-kyun. Equipment: character card. White cat infant, cute attribute +1. It worked. Lee Jae-kyun nodded secretly. Although Tsunade was violent, she was still a woman after all. There is no resistance to cute things. Seeing that both of them stopped him, Dashiwan didn't get angry, just squinted and said lightly, if this is the case, what are you going to do? The main force of Yuyan village is coming tomorrow. The main force of Yuyan village. Lee Jae-kyun, lying in Tsunade's arms, thought secretly, will it be the apex of the ninja world Sancho Fish Hanzo? When he heard this, Tsunade frowned. Of course I know about this, but as long as he is sent back to the rear camp, he should survive. Laugh. Dashiwan sneered disdainfully. You can save him for one day, and only this day will be the only one. Tsunade looked ugly, but still insisted on helping Lee Jae-kyun and brought Lee Jae-kyun back to his camp. The warm fire light lit up, and Lee Jae-kyun slowly opened his eyes in a timely manner. Li Jexuan stared with big cute eyes and asked in confusion like a kitten, "Sister, do you know where my parents are? I miss them." The sorrowful lines, plus the cat's cute attribute bonus, directly poke Naka Tsunade's tears. This child is too pitiful. Mom and Dad went far away. You will live with your sister from now on. Tsunade gritted his teeth and hugged Li Jexuan into his arms, muttering to himself, "As long as I have good luck, I can only rely on myself. I must be able to raise this child." Li Jexuan never expected that the appropriate lines combined with cuteness would make Tsunade's motherly love overflowing, and he would raise him up. In the main world, it is obviously a cultivated object, and it turns out to be the main object in another time and space. However, feeling the soft touch constantly coming from the cheeks and the top of the head, Li Jexuan said comfortably, "Occasionally, it seems good to be a raised object." However, the plot mission is still not triggered. Li Jexuan said under the huge pressure on the top of his head and cheeks, "It seems that this story mission should not be a villain mission. Tasks like killing the 3 ninjas are triggered long ago. In that case, the task of this story will fall on the other protagonist of this story, Sancho Fish Hanzo. Go to sleep, there will be a big battle tomorrow." Tsunade hugged Li Jexuan tightly, fell on the bed and fell asleep. But this time, Li Jexuan is suffering. Facing the strong squeeze of the 2 mountains, Li Jexuan, as a normal man from the 21st century on the earth, could not sleep all night. The soft touch, the tangy fragrance, and the huge body shape made Li Jexuan cry out, "Who can stand it?" People are prone to thinking wildly if they can't sleep. Li Jexuan can't help but think of a key question. He is now sleeping on the same bed with mature Tsunade. Is this a betrayal for Lori Tsunade in the main world? "Because I slept with you, so I greened you." Cuckoo. The rooster crowed, and came early in the morning. Tsunade jumped off the bed vigorously, but when she turned her head, she found Li Jexuan on the bed with a gray face and 2 panda eyes comparable to Gaara. Summary: What's the matter with you? Tsunade subconsciously took Li Jexuan into his arms, so Li Jexuan's face became darker. He could smell, touch, and even lick, but his 3-year-old body made this everything has become dull. Summaries on, "Are you sick?" Tsunade pitied Li Jexuan tightly in his arms again, and Li Jexuan couldn't help but his eyes widened. "Heaven! Why do you treat me like this? I'm just a child." While Li Jexuan was happy and suffering, Oshimaru's cold voice suddenly came from outside the camp. "Suna, the intelligence personnel investigating in front have information that the main force of Wuin village has arrived." Hearing this, Tsunade's expression immediately became serious. Putting down Li Jexuan, he put on Anbu's armor and equipment in 2 seconds. Summary: Jexuan, you are here to wait for my sister and wait for my sister to come back. Tsunade grabbed Li Jexuan's shoulder and put it on the bed, and said with some worry, "Don't run around, my sister will be anxious." After speaking, Tsunade opened the camp and went straight out. Finally liberated, Li Jexuan couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. He stood up and just wanted to sneak behind Tsunade to meet the legendary demigod. But at this moment, a pale arm slammed the curtain open, Dashi Wan's pale face got in, and it happened to hit Li Jexuan with a relaxed face. After a long silence, Li Jexuan smiled and stretched out his arm, "Brother, hug." After a long silence, Dashi Wan, as if it had come, opened the camp with a sudden grin and sneered out again. Oshimaru, he was cute when he was young. Li Jexuan shook his head helplessly, his eyes flickered. "I don't know, did he see something just now? Otherwise, he shouldn't let me go." Since Oshimaru knew that Tsunade had left, and even got into the camp alone, naturally only had one purpose, and that was to kill Li Jexuan. "There is no reason, you are the one who killed." This is the weird logic of Oshimaru, but the weird thing is that, for some reason, he seems to have changed his mind in the middle. It's so funny, that kid. As he walked outside the camp, Dashawan stuck out his tongue, making a stingy, drooling sound. "That kind of eyes and movements are definitely not children. Could it be that you are rejuvenating?" Dashimaru squinted his eyes, lowered his sleeves slightly, and a few gray snakes emerged cleverly and swam towards Li Jexuan's camp. At the same time, in the woods hundreds of kilometers away. The screams of human beings before death are always exceptionally desolate. A terrifying man wearing a gas mask slowly drew a huge black sickle from the chest of Konoha Ninja. It seems that these Konoha ninjas have found your trail long ago. Master Hanzo, it is our lax search, please forgive me. For a while, nearly 100 Yurin knelt down and asked Hanzo's forgiveness. Seeing this, Hanzo couldn't help shaking his head. He didn't sigh that the information was inside by Konoha, but because of the cowardice and incompetence of these men. It looks like Oshimaru has already been eyeing me. Li Jexuan spread out his palms, and several familiar gray snakes entangled in his hands. It is a pity that when Da Shi Wan uses the psychic snake in Longdedong to monitor him, it is doomed to be a wrong decision. With the exception of Li Jexuan's dragon immortal human body, apart from the white snake immortal, it is already the most noble existence in Longdi Cave. Hehe, since you want to monitor me so much, let you monitor it. Li Jexuan smiled and let go of the gray snakes, letting them lurking at his side, and relaying their own news to Dashawan. After doing all this, Li Jexuan walked straight out of the camp. Although Oshimaru tricked Tsunade out to kill him, Yurin's arrival was also a fact. 100 kilometers away, Yurin, led by Hanzo, has camped. Konoha, Cheyenne, and Yenian go to war in the country of rain. This approach completely angered Hanzo, so he decided to declare war on the three kingdoms at the same time. Among these three countries, the hardest bone to gnaw is Konoha. Report to Hanzo-sama, Konoha Hokage is not here on the battlefield. In the country of rain, where heavy rains continue, Yunin's detection ability is far superior to other Shinin villages. Hearing this, Hanzo nodded in satisfaction. In this way, as long as this line of defense is defeated, Konoha's front will be completely collapsed. Hanzo is very clear that the overall strength of Yuyin village is weak. Let alone challenge the three ninja villages at the same time, even if they pull out a ninja village 1v1, they will not win. However, it is precisely because the three ninja villages gather here that they have a chance. Because his personal strength is strong enough. In this era when the ninjas are indifferent, Hanzo is the most powerful ninja in this ninja world. As long as you use yourself as an arrow, find the weak places of the other three ninja villages, defeat them in one fell swoop, and fight a blitzkrieg. In that case, let's attack quickly. Hanzo gave an order, and nearly 1,000 Yurin stepped up and rushed towards the Konoha defense line. Tian show feet. Tsunade stepped on the ground and cracked the entire ground into ruins, and Yunin on the ground was killed and injured by this overbearing foot. Shulking snake hand. Dashimaru stretched out his arm fiercely, and her white arm suddenly turned into a huge venomous snake, wrapped around Yurin in front of him and swallowed it completely. Huo done great flame bomb. Jilai also opened his mouth wide, and the grease that chakra turned into increased the power of the flame several times, roasting Yurin in front of him into a piece of coke. Konoha Sannin raged on the battlefield, and ordinary ninjas were not their opponents at all. But on the other side, Hanzo was also frantically slaughtering Konoha's ninja. But as the so-called king is king, will be the general. Whether it's Hanzo or Konoha Sannin, they don't want to see ordinary ninjas on their side suffer any more casualties. The rhythm must be quickened. Hanzo slapped his palms to the ground fiercely, and a huge Sancho fish, the baby fish, emerged from the psychic smoke. Boom! Sancho fish got its name because of its baby-like cry. With its flat mouth open, a thick purple mist gushes out. The terrifying purple poisonous mist exudes an unknown aura all over the body, slowly drifting towards the Konoha ninja like a cloud of smoke. Zitsa, where the poisonous fog passes, the vegetation wither, and even the sand is corroded. When the animal comes into contact with the poisonous fog, it falls on its back and its heart stops beating. Even Konoha's ninja, who sucked a bite of poison, would instantly coma and completely lose his life within 10 minutes. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.